You're listening to The Pete Sheppard Show.
Notre Dame went on the road, had a strong win at Stanford, but Alabama went on the road in a rivalry game. Looked really good, especially in the first half, getting up 17-0, ran the ball well. Auburn came back at them. They had a great gutsy call on 4th and 2 late in the third quarter to get a touchdown, and then got the turnover late in that game. And I think that was enough to change the minds of a couple of committee members to push Alabama up ahead of Notre Dame in this week's rankings.
They all should be drug tested. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Pete Sheppard Show and the Anti-College Football Playoff Committee. That voice, of course, was Hunter Yurachek, the committee chair of the Arkansas athletic director. Just think about that for a second. Alabama's great gutsy 4th down call to take the lead against a 5-7 Auburn team gave them the edge over Notre Dame. The torrential flood of illogic is through the roof. We'll have all his BS. You can smell it through whatever device you're listening from in a couple of minutes here. It's 2 minutes and 35-second interview with Reese Davis last night around 10 past 7 Eastern time as the College Football Committee released rankings with, again, just the torrential flood of illogic is stunning to me, absolutely stunning to me. And it's not just about Miami being screwed right now, although they still have a chance to get in. Notre Dame could get screwed as well. Oklahoma somehow squeaks out a win against LSU at home, and then they're not even in this conversation about style points and dropping, yet Alabama moves up a spot ahead of Notre Dame. Miami and BYU would be the first two teams out. There's a lot to discuss, and I can't. Nobody really has a grasp of what this committee's thinking because they make up the shit as they go along. There are certain standards and rules that apply to certain teams and certain rules and standards that don't. They don't follow the criteria at all they claim to cherish. What a mess this committee is. An absolute mess. We'll break it all down for you as best we can. Welcome to the Pete Sheppard Show here on the Coastal Sports Digital Network. Thanks for checking us out here on this Hump Day Wednesday. The video platform, follow me at pshep326 on YouTube, Kick, Rumble, LinkedIn, Instagram, CSDN Florida, at the great Odyssey app, at SR1029 The Game, and always call or text the show 727-858-6650. Lots going on. A beautiful day here again in Southwest Florida. Down here in Fort Myers, Angels up in Tampa. Temperature's going to reach about 80 degrees today. Humidity a little dewy this morning, but going to go down. Going to be nice and dry. Thought we were going to get some rain yesterday because we haven't had rain in about 6 weeks in Fort Myers besides the sprinkler system. But anyway, hopefully we'll get some sooner rather than later because my backyard is dry as a martini, as they say. Anyway, so we got a lot to talk about with this College Football Playoff Committee. We've got some NFL news to tell you about as well. And then kind of a weird thing happened a few hours ago. 2:30 this morning, Chris Paul for the LA Clippers was sent home. Now, he's retiring this year. But for some reason, he and Ty Lue and ownership or GM or whatever, not going well, but you sent home Ty Lue. I mean, you sent home Chris Paul, one of the greatest point guards of all time, one of the greatest guards of all time in the NBA. Don't have to go over all the accolades. Most of you know what they are, but he was sent home? It got that bad that you sent him home? So we'll find out if we can the story behind the story behind the story. Anyway, lots going on. Celtics come back with a really nice win last night on national TV, which I know that ESPN's morning show would have led with it had the Knicks won, but they didn't, so they led with the Chris Paul story instead. They spent 25 minutes on that, and then they got into the College Football Playoff Committee. The Chris Paul story is not the lead story for anybody on this planet. Maybe in Bristol for 25 minutes was ridiculous. But anyway, that's why we do this show, because we're not going to sit here and spend 25 minutes on Chris Paul until we find out exactly what happened. But the Knicks beating the Celtics, trust me, they would have led with that, but that didn't happen. Great job last night by the Celtic. Bruins lost a tough one. Angels 76ers won last night as well, big. And we got a lot going on, a lot to break down with all of this college football playoff committee gobbledygook. It's just nobody can figure it out. They change the narrative every week. They won't stick to the criteria, which they claim to cherish. And on we go. And there's still a lot of questions to be answered. And it's going to affect teams. Could Alabama, Notre Dame, Miami, BYU. They're all bubble teams as far as I'm concerned right now. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way, at least for a couple of them. But anyway, we're going to break it all down for you. We're saying good morning to Angel Martinez in Tampa. Good morning, Angel. How are you?
Rome. Hi, good morning, Pete. Once again, we apologize. Once beyond my control, I have nothing to do with it. The server that we use in order for the show to go live on the radio, if you guys are not hearing it and you're currently hearing Sheila's past show, that's because they have a problem that they're trying to resolve in their solution process. And unfortunately, you can't hear us on the radio, but of course you guys can watch us here live, and you can watch us over on our app as well. So you can listen in on the app on the live feed. As far as the video portion, the radio, hopefully this is now morning number 2 that they got to get it somehow or another situated and straightened out. So once that happens, then obviously you guys will be able to hear the stuff again, and or you'll be able to hear the replay a little bit later on after the show. So
the college football playoff committee running this too. I mean, as messed up as that is.
Yep. That and but we did get rain here yesterday, so I know you guys were looking for. Yeah, we got it for a good maybe 15 minutes. We had high winds, a lot of rain, and then it's like a switch, like Noah's Ark, turn off, and then sun came back and the clouds washed away. So yeah, we had it for a good 15 minutes. And
it looked like it was going to happen around yesterday, around I don't know, 2:45, 2:30, 2:45, but then it didn't. Got some darker clouds than I'd seen in a long time, but then, I don't know, for 25 minutes later, the sun was back out. So anyway, glad you got some rain. We needed it. I'm telling you, in my backyard, it's ridiculous. It's like straw. Anyway,
it's been a while.
It could be snow, right? It could be snow. So it is what it is. I'm serious. I'm concerned about the environment, Angel. I want all our wildlife to have watering holes and stuff like that, so gators don't start roaming the streets.
That would be something.
All right, let's get it going. We've got a lot to talk about here. Great guest coming up today, Bill Sparrows from bookies.com, senior betting analyst at 8:05. And then Mia O'Brien from ESPN Radio will join me via video at 9 a.m. We'll get her thoughts on a whole bunch of stuff, what's going on, not only with the Jacksonville Jaguars, but in college football, and her thoughts on the committee, which we're going to get to right this second, because I don't want there's just a lot to break down here. So let's get it done here. Last night, after that, well, let me set this up first. The new rankings came out. So James Madison, welcome to the top 25. They're actually talking about the possibility of teams like James Madison and North Texas both getting into the college football playoff if if Duke wins, because you got to understand it's the top 4 conferences, not necessarily have to be Power 4 conferences. The top 4 ranked conferences get in, and if Duke ever wins, that could open the door actually for North Texas and James Madison, should they beat their respective teams in their conference championship games. That would be Friday night. Troy would be at James Madison, and in the Sun Belt Championship, and North Texas would be at Tulane, for the American Athletic Championship. We're going to get to all of it in a second. So 25-20 is James Madison, North Texas, Iowa, Georgia Tech, Houston, and Tulane. Next up, 19 is Michigan, Arizona, Virginia, USC, Utah, Vanderbilt, Texas, Miami at 12, BYU at 11, Notre Dame at 10, Alabama 9, Oklahoma at 8, Texas A&M 7, Ole Miss 6, Oregon 5, Texas Tech 4, Georgia, Indiana, Ohio State round out the top 5. We're going to get to all of this stuff in a second here. I'm going to tell you my thoughts and how messed up this committee is. But here is Hunter Yurachek on with Reese Davis last night, following the releasing of the rankings, trying to explain himself, and none of it makes sense at all. None of it.
We are joined by the chair of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, Hunter Yurachek. Hunter, I think the most notable thing that happened in these rankings is that Alabama moved ahead of Notre Dame. Why?
Reese, I will tell you the debate between Alabama and Notre Dame over the past 3 weeks has been one of the strongest debates we've had in the room for the past 2 years that I've been a member of the committee. And I think this week, as we looked at those two teams and how closely they have been over the past 3 weeks, Notre Dame went on the road, had a strong win at Stanford, but Alabama went on the road in a rivalry game. Looked really good, especially in the first half, getting up 17-0, ran the ball well. Auburn came back at them. They had a great gutsy call on 4th and 2 late in the third quarter to get a touchdown, and then got the turnover late in that game. And I think that was enough to change the minds of a couple of committee members to push Alabama up ahead of Notre Dame in this week's rankings.
You know what the question is going to be. It's that you're not going to want to have a team lose in the SEC championship game and get bumped out if, say, BYU wins the Big 12. Did that come up in the room?
It did not, Reese. We will evaluate the results of the championship game after they are all completed over the weekend.
Okay, here is a really important factor, too, because you're still honoring head-to-head between Alabama and Oklahoma with the Sooners being up. But it has not carried the day for Miami and Notre Dame. Neither Miami nor Notre Dame play anymore. Among the teams who are finished playing, do not play this week, can their order flip next Sunday in the final rankings? Or is the order for the teams whose hay is in the barn, whose resume is complete, are they set in terms of where they are relative to one another?
Great question, Reese. The management committee during the offseason provided some clarification to some comments that were made last year. And indeed, idle teams can move following the results of the championship games and how they impact the teams that are around those that play in the championship game, and data such as strength of schedule, teams that may be idle. So yes, teams that are idle can move up or down.
So we're not set with Miami definitively being behind Notre Dame no matter what. Is that fair to say?
Reese, following the championship games, we will re-rank the top 25 teams, and we'll see where they fall.
I'm going to take that as the Canes still have a chance. Hunter, thanks a lot for being with us, and we look forward to talking to
Again, and Reese Davis asked everything that he should have asked. When they start talking about, here's where the torrential flood of illogic comes in. I don't know how this Oklahoma has stayed where they are after their terrible performance at home against LSU, where they were losing in the fourth quarter until Mateer threw a touchdown late. Think about that. And they stay where they are. And you know what pisses me off, Angel, more than anything? I got to sit here somehow, and I got to defend Notre Dame a little bit here. Because this is ridiculous that Alabama jumped over them. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. They don't get penalized for style points. Miami got penalized for lack of style points, and a couple of other teams until very recently, where they had to run up the score on purpose to prove a point. To Steve Sarkisian's point, yeah, they had to run up the score, but that's not these teams' fault. That's the committee's fault. That's what they want to see. And it doesn't do the kids any good. You're leaving kids in. I told you, the ones against some of the twos, threes, and fourths on the other team, and because the committee wants style points. Where's the style points for the Oklahoma Sooners? Somebody's going to explain this to me. How that team was not brought up at all last night. They shouldn't be ranked. If Miami played Oklahoma, I am telling you, Angel, they would blow them out of the water. They'd win by 3 touchdowns. Mateer would be on his ass, on his back the entire game. There is no way on God's green earth that Oklahoma beats Miami. Now, I don't care where they play. Play on Pluto, play on Mars, play anywhere you want. And they go, no one's talking about Oklahoma. How does that happen? How does Oklahoma barely squeak out a win against LSU, a team in complete disarray, and nobody's talking about it? And then you have, and then you start trying to, for him to say that that they didn't factor in if BYU wins, what impact it would have on Alabama if Alabama loses to Georgia and would have 3 losses. They're making it seem like no matter what Alabama does, barring a 40-point blowout to Georgia, that they're going to be safe no matter what. It's absolutely ridiculous. A team that lost to Florida State, but we don't count that because it was too early in the season. The committee still has not addressed. They'll talk about the Alabama-Oklahoma game, but they won't talk about Miami-Notre Dame in the same context. It is so absolutely ridiculous. And it still may come down to if Duke ever beats Virginia, for the Miami Hurricanes, basically, the realistic part, can Duke beat Virginia? I suppose they could. They didn't look good against them in the regular season game. Virginia won, but who the hell knows what's going on? I think Texas Tech is going to beat BYU. So BYU losing is good for Miami. That's what you want. That knocks BYU out. Also, Georgia winning against Alabama helps Miami. But it looks that way on the surface. But when you hear people like Hunter Yurachek talk about it, I don't know what to expect. I really don't. I think they have put themselves in a horrible position with the Miami Hurricanes because after they lost to SMU, they threw them under the bus and threw them down to number 18, thinking, they're probably going to lose again. This, that, and the other thing. We'll find a way to look good enough. Well, it didn't. They won 5 in a row. They blasted teams all over the ACC, and to the committee's shock, there's Miami once again knocking on the door. They should be ranked ahead of Notre Dame. And for me, I'd rank them ahead of Oklahoma. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Why was that not brought up? Why is Oklahoma's shitty win over LSU not brought up? And as I've said a million times, for me, I am not one of those people. I guess I would have to be now, but I'm not one of those people where I get caught up in sexiness of wins, particularly in conference games. Not that it's a big rivalry now between Oklahoma and LSU, but they are in the SEC. I'm not one for running up the score or, hey, you win a game, you win a game. That's a W. I don't get caught up and say, but that's not how this committee thinks. It's not. They've said it. They've proven it. And for some people, not others, but for some they have. So I have no idea what's going on. I think if BYU loses, and I think they will, and Alabama has just had Georgia's number no matter what. They won 10 out of 11, but certainly Georgia can win this game. If Georgia and if Georgia and Texas Tech both win, I think Miami's in. The unbelievable part is Miami and Notre Dame, there are scenarios where both teams could be left out. Notre Dame could get bumped out because of what happened, because Alabama jumped them for some reason, beating a lousy Auburn team on the road. And somehow they kind of get rewarded for it. Are you serious? Are you serious, committee? You bump up Alabama past, I can't believe, Angel, I have to say this. Notre Dame got screwed, but they've been screwing, Miami all year for the most part. But Notre Dame, I got it.
Who's on these? I would love to know who's on these committees.
They're administrators. And it's only this Saturday for the first time that they're going to all watch the games together. I don't know what else they watch, but it is just illogical. Everything that they do, everything that they say makes no sense, except if you're Ohio State and Indiana. And I would put my Hurricanes up against them any day of the week. Any day of the week. From what I have seen in the competition that those two teams are playing, Miami's 4-0 against ranked teams this year. The SOR, which they claim to cherish, is almost identical with Notre Dame. I put all the stats up on the Facebook. I'm not here. I'm not going to. Anybody who's watched the Hurricanes play this year, and anybody who's watched Notre Dame play this year, I think both teams belong in it. I do. I think Notre Dame would smoke Oklahoma. I think Miami would smoke Oklahoma. And Miami, if they played in a neutral field right now, Miami would be a 5.5-point underdog. What makes you think the way the Hurricanes are playing now that the result's going to be any different? You think Notre Dame's offensive line all of a sudden got so much better against some of the crap competition that they played? I was there. They were dominated. And go back, the ACC network and the ESPN, the ACC network is running the Miami Notre Dame game, Angel, I think 13 times because they want people to check it out. Look, I think Miami and Notre Dame both should be in the college football playoff, okay? this stuff going on with the group of 5, and I've always been one for the little guy. I understand that with the 12 teams. I understand that it needs to go to 16, which I'm hoping it does even next year. But there's a possibility out there. There is a possibility. Heather Dennis brought it up about James Madison possibly and North Texas. There is a possibility you could have 2 group of 5 teams in because they are highly ranked. They're higher ranked than Duke. If Duke wins, yes, it helps Miami, but it would help Miami because they would be the highest ranked ACC team and they would get in, and Duke would not get in the college football playoff. If Virginia wins, Virginia is probably in the college football playoff. And I expect them to win. But if they don't, it opens up a whole other gigantic can of worms. So Manny Diaz, former coach of the U, doing a pretty good job with Duke, a 7-5, a 5-loss team. If they beat Virginia, technically, North Texas and James Madison, assuming they win the respective American Athletic Conference Championship and the Sun Belt Conference Championship, respectively, there is a chance you could get those 2 in. And guess who would be bumped out? Notre Dame. And there's still a chance that Notre Dame could be bumped out anyway if BYU wins. So if you're a Notre Dame fan, you're a Miami fan, you're rooting like hell for Texas Tech. You're rooting like hell for Georgia as well. But this whole thing, this whole system is ridiculous, the way it is set up and the way they don't follow their own criteria. They just make shit up as they go along for certain teams. It's unbelievable to me. It really, 3 years of this crap. And every year gets worse and worse and worse. It started with the Florida State thing, which going back, I was dead wrong. I remember being on when I was on the Craig at ESPN New Hampshire, and I was like, okay, the quarterback's going down, and I understand why they left Florida State out, an undefeated Florida State team, at the time. And I was wrong. I was wrong. They should have been allowed to play. They should have been. It was ridiculous. And it's getting worse and worse and worse because they don't follow the criteria they're supposed to follow. Let's scroll down, Angel, a couple. And here's Josh Pate, my man from CBS Sports. And he gives another. He kind of, I haven't heard this yet, but I'm sure it's very logical and well thought out. You see it, Angel? That's it. Right? No, that right there. There's Josh Pate from CBS Sports talking about the Miami Notre Dame thing. Again, I haven't heard this yet, but he's usually pretty, and he's not, he's not biased one way or the other. Just lays it all out like I do usually. Let's see what he has to say.
I don't need you to throw data points in my face. I've seen all the arguments. I've heard the Notre Dame case articulated. It's wrong. It's wrong. If I've got a head-to-head result, if the resumes are even remotely comparable, the head-to-head result's going to carry the day. I'll tell you why. Because this is competitive sport. I don't think Miami's fully cooked yet. It is merit-based competitive sport. I don't need you coming to me saying, oh, well, the head-to-head does matter. It's just not the only thing that matters. It better be times 10 mattering over everything else. Or else I don't really know why we're playing the games. Okay? So you're either going to come to me and say Notre Dame's resume is unequivocally head and shoulders better than Miami, which it's not. Or I'm going to look you in the eye and say, great, cool, you found fractions of inches on that little piece of paper. I found 4.5 hours of game tape, if you want to watch the broadcast copy, that shows you Miami beating Notre Dame. Josh, that was a long time ago.
Soundly.
Yeah. Unless you tell me we've got preseason games in college football now, as far as I can tell, it's a regular season game. There is an L right there. Miami should be the biggest fan of Duke football in the history of mankind right now. Brigham Young loses, okay, so they're out of the way. And then it's just Miami and Notre Dame next to each other. If Duke wins the ACC championship game, the aforementioned ACC doomsday scenario goes into effect. And so the committee would be left sitting there having already had the Notre Dame-Miami debate in front of them to begin with, which is egregious on the surface that Miami doesn't already get the nod over Notre Dame. Not only will they have that, they'll also have this added sledgehammer to their face at the 11th hour of the idea that we either put Miami in or there will be no representation from an entire Power Four conference.
Absolutely. Dead on. Dead on. It's kind of what I've been saying. I mean, it's just, it's, and like the criteria says, they don't have to have a Power Four conference champion in the college football playoff. It's the highest rankings conference. And right now in the college football playoff, yes, Virginia's ranked higher than Tulane and ranked higher than James Madison. But if Duke were to win, that would not be the case, assuming Tulane and James Madison won. And then Miami would absolutely be in. They'd have to. And the thing is, the Hurricane, they're so talented. They're so talented. It's ridiculous to think that Miami and Notre Dame both could not be in the college football playoff. It's just mind-boggling to me that there are certain scenarios that go against both teams. And that is what Notre Dame fans need to get a grip on right now, that you also could be bumped out of this whole thing, depending on what happens. Now, could Miami get in because of what happens and Notre Dame get bumped out? Yes, absolutely. Because I can't wait to see if indeed Alabama loses and Texas Tech wins, and you're going to have the committee, which you just heard Hunter Yurachek, if you take him at his word, which I don't, saying that there's still a chance for teams like Miami to get in because when they reevaluate after the conference championships, there's still a possibility. Yet he didn't take into consideration, or at least he says he didn't, what Reese Davis said to him about BYU losing. How do you not have that discussion, Angel, in the committee, that if BYU should win, or BYU loses, either way, you got to have a plan A and a plan B. That's what you got to do. I can't believe if he says that's true, and they haven't even begun to look at either scenario. That is insane to me. Then all of these committee members either do away with the system, come up with something better, or they all should be drug tested. All of them. Because it doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any sense for a committee, God, I hate committees, for a committee to not take into consideration the last week of the college football regular season, championship week. How do you not have a float? How do you not have a whiteboard, a bunch of whiteboards? Scenario A, BYU wins, Texas Tech loses. Notre Dame, Alabama loses, Alabama wins. How do you not have plan A, B, C, D, maybe even E? Taking into consideration, should Tulane lose? Should James Madison lose in their respective conference championships? Should they win in their respective conference championships? Should Virginia win? Should Duke win in the ACC? Whichever one. There's got to be whiteboard. You've got to have, you got to figure this stuff out. And then, of course, we have to figure out what style points mean. Because style points winning for Tulane and James Madison might be very different than Alabama style points should they lose to Georgia in a close game, as opposed to losing to Georgia by 2 touchdowns. That changes everything. I don't know what style point means for Virginia if they beat Duke by 3. If Duke wins, obviously, if Duke wins the ACC championship, Duke is not going to the college football playoff. I can promise you that. They will not go, nor should they. Nor should they. Everybody knows Miami is the best team by far in the ACC, by far. When you take everything, the entire body of work, and seeing what's happening here. And the committee shot themselves in the foot because they threw Miami after the SMU loss down to number 18. And then the nerve to act surprised. I told you back then they weren't going to lose again. They're probably going to crush everybody, and they have. All the metrics that tell you the Notre Dame stuff, the SOR is almost identical. Not to mention they beat them. So that's first and foremost. But if you're looking at common opponents, 3 out of the 4 teams that they both played, Miami outscored their opponent more than Notre Dame, which shouldn't count for a hill of beans, but it does. And the only one that didn't was the Syracuse game where they had a lacrosse player playing quarterback, as opposed to when Miami crushed them a few weeks earlier when they actually had a real quarterback. So you can throw the Syracuse game out. You put in that Miami's 4-0 against ranked teams. Notre Dame's 2-2 against ranked teams. And you throw in the fact that Miami beat Notre Dame, and the common opponent wins go to Miami as well. They outscored the common opponents 3-1. And the only reason it wasn't 4-0 is because they didn't get to play against a lacrosse player at quarterback either. They still blew out Syracuse. Anyway, your thoughts on that and a lot more at 727-858-6650. Good morning, Jerry. Bruins aren't going anywhere with Swayman, and that's not true, Jerry. You know, where were you when they won 7 in a row? He was a big part of that. Last night wasn't a good night for the Bruins. They lost, but this is what we do. We just jump on and off bandwagons. Look, Tampa Bay lost last night 2-5-1. They ended their 7-game streak. They're all bunched up. Way too early, Jerry. Come on. There's a lot of hockey left. I'm not too worried about. I think overall the Bruins have played fairly well these last 6 weeks. Overall, the Celtics won a hell of a game last night too, overcoming a 15-point deficit and beating, really taking it, then going up by 18, and then I knew the Knicks were going to go on a run at the end, and they did. But the Celtics prevailed last night to 123-117, 42 points, season high for Jaylen Brown. It was outstanding stuff. All right, here is more college football stuff here. Let's check in. Here's Lane Kiffin crediting Nick Saban for helping him make the decision to take the LSU job.
You know, Coach Saban kind of coached at another place in this conference, so I can't really say exactly what he said, but I'll say I think the world of Coach Saban, and I respect him, and so there's a reason I'm here.
Yay. That's the LSU webpage. Here is Lane Kiffin on why he left Ole Miss for LSU.
I'm wondering if there are things that you can share with your conversations with your mentors and whomever else you sought out to make this decision. What were some of the things that they shared with you that sort of helped sway you one way or the other?
Yeah, I think that, you know, it was a really difficult decision. And when you're in those difficult decisions and you're torn, very torn, back and forth, and there's multiple options, you know. There were really, you know, 4 different places, you know, that we had to think about in this. And I just talked to them, and it really was apparent I felt like everybody that I talked to outside of the state that I was in all basically said the same thing, okay? They all said, man, you are going to regret it if you don't take the shot and you don't go to LSU. It's the best job in America, it's the best resources, and to win it.
All right. Lot to digest there. And then Paul Feinbaum yesterday, finally on First Take on Lane Kiffin.
I truly believe that's one of the most fraudulent things I've ever heard from a head football coach. I don't know what I am making. I asked my agent not to tell me. Nobody believes that because everybody in America knows what Lane Kiffin is making. It's been reported in every publication, on every broadcast, that he could make $12 million from the 3 schools going after him. So Lane, don't try to con all of us like you've tried to con some of us in the process, that you're doing the right thing, that you're trying to get the Nobel Peace Prize because you care so much about your players at Ole Miss, which you've just abandoned as they're trying to get to a playoff for the first time in history. So it's a great story. It sounds good, but it is pure balderdash. And I'm sorry, I just don't buy almost anything that Lane Kiffin says anymore.
Balderdash, what a great word. Underused, hits home hard. Basically calling you a bullshit artist, Lane Kiffin. Yeah, and I said the same thing. By the way, Mississippi moves up 1 spot in the polls to number 6. They lose their coach, but they move up. Florida State lost their quarterback 3 years ago. They get kicked out. I mean, it's just manure. It really is. It's just manure. Pat Fitzgerald introduced as the new head coach at Michigan State.
And what it's given me is some great clarity. This will always be about the players, and how we can focus and develop them is what it's all about. As far as my motivation, you don't have to ask me about that. I've been dreaming about this day for a long time. And I don't want to do this. I don't want to cry. I'm just so grateful and I'm so thankful. Our family is. And there'll be no more motivated coach to get this program where it needs to be than I will be compared to anywhere else in the country. I promise you that.
Yay. Now, what's interesting, Angel, and Jay Flanley will agree, we'll have him on Friday, but it makes the Michigan State rival that much more sexy again, I think, which is good for college football. Whatever side you agree. I have no stake in the game, so it doesn't matter to me. I just know that I think Penn State blew it by not hiring this guy. Here's more from Pat Fitzgerald.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I kind of felt the same way when I addressed the team this morning. It was great to see those guys, but what an exciting day it is to be here, and thank you for everyone for attending. I'm humbled to be named the head football coach here at Michigan State University. First and foremost, I want to start with some thank yous. President, Dr. Guskowitz, thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, I can't do it. It's everything. All these new coaches, it's the same thing. Got to thank the administration. Got to thank Bush. Got to thank this, that. We get it. I think it's good for the Big Ten that he's back, and I think it's good at Michigan State. It's going to put the fear of God into some teams because you know that team is going to be on the uprise once again because of him. He knows how to recruit in the conference. I still don't know what the hell Penn State's doing or who they're going to go after. Don't know, but it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really interesting.
I didn't want to say anything, but they did call me last night, asked me if I want to come out of retirement. I told them I have to thank my administration first and thank Pete Sheppard and thank everyone else.
Oh, and by the way, Lane Kiffin's going to allow Charlie Weiss Jr. to coach Ole Miss in the college football playoff. Isn't that nice?
There is.
Yeah, offensive side of the ball. So, all right, Angel, here's what we're going to do. Take a quick break. Then we'll come back and have some more reactions, have some NFL news to tell you about. Mike Vrabel calls out my friend Phil Perry yesterday in the middle of the press conference, telling him not to interrupt him. We'll get to that. We'll get Pat McAfee's take on the Patriots and the NFL as well. And a whole lot more. Again, Bill Sparrows from the senior betting analyst from bookies.com at 8:05, and me, O'Brien, from ESPN Radio at 9 a.m. this morning here on the Pete Sheppard Show on the Coastal Sports Digital Network. Phil Castanetti, Sports World in Saugus, Mass. is New England's place to buy or sell the finest in sports memorabilia. For over 35 years, Sports World has offered the finest in sports collectibles, so get on down there. Phil Castanetti, Sports World at 184 Broadway in Saugus. Call 781-233-7222 for more information. 781-233-7222 for more information. Sports World in Saugus, be there. And for the best articles and audio, there's only one source that provides everything you need 365 days a year to satisfy your sports crave. It's Total Sports Prep. The staff combing through the best articles and audio so you don't have to. Sports and non-sports kicker stories will leave you laughing all day long. To get your free trial of Total Sports Prep, contact them. info@sportsbroadcastingcoach.com. info@sportsbroadcastingcoach.com. Total Sports Prep, the name says it all. Pete Sheppard Show will continue next. Just a couple of minutes here. Stand by at the Coastal Sports Digital Network.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Hey everybody, it's Pete Sheppard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of Ace Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists. At ATA, they're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com. Or you can email them, sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I gotta tell you, I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too, but I'm glad we are.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and life experiences come together through conversation, and it feels good.
Wow, your story is so...
Interesting?
Yeah.
When people actually sit down, talk, and listen to one another, they can break down boundaries and connect as human beings. At lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep, you can listen to amazing, life-changing conversations and find simple tools to start a conversation of your own.
I know one thing. This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together by having the courage to start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
People do some pretty cool things in their 40s and 50s. Why should saving for retirement be any different? I mean, they go back to college, learn new instruments, start skateboarding.
Whoa!
Okay, maybe that one's not for everybody, but saving for retirement is. With aceyourretirement.org, you can get on track with your retirement savings no matter your age. Just have a 3-minute chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach from AARP. You'll get personalized recommendations based on your input that are easy to understand and work with your lifestyle. It's quick, easy, and free. Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, but you know they got your back.
Woohoo! Gnarly move, Dad.
Thanks, sweetie.
So wherever you are in your retirement savings journey, head to aceyourretirement.org and start chatting with Avo today. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad, just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless, and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
The Pete Sheppard Show. It's fun for the whole family, if it's dysfunctional.
For the attack. The pull-up. The two. Towns working from the top. Pritchard knew that move. Knew it was coming. Took it away. Simons all the way. And one.
Tries to go behind his back. Pritchard, with the anticipation, comes up with the steal, and then Simons off to the races here.
Tyrus had 15 points in the first half. He's got 16 points in the third quarter. And I think he might have a few more. Maxey!
Down the other end, 26-point lead when we come back.
All right, there it was on the Celtics on NBC last night and NBC Sports Philadelphia with the call. Celtics and 76ers both win last night. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Pete Sheppard Show on the Coastal Sports Digital Network. Not going to do a lot of NBA stuff, although the Chris Paul story is fascinating. Let me see if ESPN even has it. It didn't even have it. It was announced on the morning show this morning. Here it is. Free-falling Clippers abruptly depart with Chris Paul, who was sent home. It was an Instagram story around 3 o'clock this morning Eastern time. They just learned he was being sent home to Los Angeles from Atlanta, where the Clippers play the Atlanta Hawks tonight. Shortly afterward, the Clippers president of basketball operations, Lawrence Frank, texted a statement to ESPN confirming that Paul is no longer on the team, saying, "We are parting ways with Chris, and he will no longer be with the team. We will work with him on the next step of his career." Chris is a legendary Clipper who has had an historic career. I want to make one thing very clear. No one is blaming Chris for our underperformance. I accept responsibility for the record we have right now. There are a lot of reasons why we've struggled. We're grateful for the impact Chris has made on the franchise. And to move on from Chris Paul, Clippers would have to waive him and pay out his $3.6 million salary, agree to a buyout, or look to trade him, which they couldn't execute until December 15th. They've lost 14 of their last 16 games, 5 in a row. They have a 5-16 record. They lost Bradley Beal, one of the big offseason signings, and he had been rejoined the Clippers in late July with that one-year deal. He's 40, but, you know, his accolades, I mean, his resume is nearly flawless. It's fantastic. Anyway, kind of a weird story. Had to be something to do with coaching or management, whatever it was. He gone. But it's just weird to do that at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Sure is.
Knock on his hotel door. Goodbye. Hey, Chris, go home. You're not playing against Atlanta tonight. Don't worry about the shoot around. Head back to L.A.
Yeah, we got the jet fired up for you on the runway. It doesn't make any sense, but again, it's the NBA shit they do.
Yeah, I don't know if there's other extenuating circumstances. There's any sort of connection to the gambling or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, all right, let's get to some NFL stuff here. We talked a lot of college football in the first 45 minutes of the show, basically. Angel, if we could, yesterday, scroll down. Let's start with Mike Vrabel, head coach of the Patriots. And the guy he's calling out is Phil Perry, who's usually pretty respectful. And NBC Sports, I don't know if, this is, he calls him out. If you wonder who it is, it's Phil Perry, NBC Sports. Boston. But here is Mike Vrabel calling out a reporter for cutting him off.
Well, they're never going to be 100%. No connection is going to be 100%. Don't cut me off, Phil. Okay. Nobody's going to be 100%. I've said this to you and to Drake and everybody else. The quarterback's job is to throw to the person that's open in the progression when they're open. Because if you don't do that, then you wait things out and you complain about strip sacks or you complain about getting hurt. And that may be a 5-yard completion and a drop step and a knife for 8 or 9 yards, and if we're lucky, it's a first down. But I think he's done that, and I think that what I talked about with the receivers of just saying, hey, go run my route to win, and I may be on the front side of the route or I may be on the back side, and they're never going to be.
All right, and here's more from Mike Vrabel. I got it on this end, Angel, on Marcus Jones, 94-yard punt return for a touchdown.
I think it was last week you said Jones is going to pop punt return, and he actually did it. What did you see on that play that ultimately led to him being able to score?
We do that on Friday, and it's not that pace, but it's like, okay, he catches the last one, and the show team's running down on the punt, and everybody's kind of finishing, and he kind of weaves in and out and goes and scores, and I'm standing over there, I'm like, looks just like it did on Friday. I said, that's pretty good, or whatever Saturday was for us. So. Yeah.
All right, there he is, head coach Mike Vrabel on WEI on the Greg Hill Show with Jermaine Wiggins asking that question, former Patriot, Super Bowl winning tight end, by the way, on that show. Okay, now let's get, Angel, if we could scroll down to scroll up, I should say, right up to Pat McAfee on the show yesterday talking about the Patriots being all the way back.
Today, we have to talk about a big bad wolf
being all the way back. And we have to talk about a dynasty, an empire that was hated by the world, but obviously respected by all in professional sports. This New England Patriots team is such a fascinating story because obviously once they were in the dumps and then they hired a man named Bill Belichick, and then he turned that place into an absolute powerhouse, the greatest dynasty in the history of professional sports over a 20-year span in a league that promotes parity. We're dominating everybody. Obviously, whenever you do that, you're going to have a lot of other fan bases hate you. Those who are at the top of the mountain are obviously going to be judged. And people always throw rocks at things that shine. And boy, a lot of cities that are football cities, that are shit-talking cities, that are passionate cities, that will certainly hate you cities, hated the New England Patriots. So whenever they had their downfall and the ugliness and the breakup and the split between Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and then they went down into the dumps of being an ass program, everybody was excited to watch the assholes kind of deal with not being able to be braggadocious about their football team, almost guaranteeing a parade every other year for 20 years. Then they hire a coach, former player. Did not go well at all. We're laughing in their face. Ha ha. You guys had a good time there for a while. Now you guys are ass. And then somehow a guy is on the free agency block as a coach who was able to win and get coach of the year places. And he's just hanging in Cleveland, not getting paid anything in a closet basic office in the back corner. They don't have it figured out there either. He's just hanging. He comes back and he turns the place into an absolute powerhouse. The number one team in the NFL, first team to 11 wins. They're heading into a bye with a young squad and an ass beating against the New York Giants on Monday Night Football. And the New England Patriots are all the way back.
Yep. And you can talk about their schedule all you want and all that stuff. They still won in Buffalo. They won a tough game in Tampa, manhandled the Buccaneers. I mean, that was a great game. It is what it is. They're clobbering teams that other teams are losing to or they're giving games to. You saw with the Giants could have beaten the Lions and a few other teams the last few weeks, and Patriots just obliterated them. And I heard I'm not even going to play it because I don't want to give the guy any credit, or any for his show. But the guy in WFAN, he went off on what a cheap hit it was that Ellis had on Jackson Dart. It's childish take, soft take, wimpy take, and I do think it would have been interesting. It would have they thrown a flag had that same situation been back in the day. Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, or Josh Allen, would they have thrown a flag? They would have been wrong to throw the flag, but. You wonder what goes on in some of these officials' heads. What may apply to some may not apply to others. Just like the College Football Playoff Committee. Yeah. All right, speaking of the Giants, here is Joe Schoen, and he here he is yesterday opening statements to his key weekly news conference.
Let me start off with 2 wins is not where we want to be right now. It's not good enough. I understand the frustration from fans, ownership, the people inside the building, and nobody's more frustrated than myself. And it starts with me, and I'm tasked with trying to get this organization going back in the proper direction. And the standard is to compete for championships year in and year out, and that's the plan moving forward. So we're going to look at everything, whether it's free agency, drafts, coaching, finishing, execution on the field, whatever it may be. We're going to look at all avenues in order to get this franchise back to where it belongs.
All right, that's from SNY New York. And here is more from Joe Schoen about drafting Jackson Dart.
Joe, the perceptions out there regarding Jackson, because of the video clips you guys maybe did in the summer back from the draft, and you saying to Dave, so you convicted in Jackson, that the perception is that he was Dable's guy, that he wasn't your guy. What insight, what can you speak to that, the idea that Jackson wasn't necessarily your guy, but that coach that decided to compete with you?
Yeah, and again, there's context to those. Again, there's hundreds of conversations leading up to that conversation in the draft room, starting, when we met with Jackson at the Senior Bowl. So you could probably ask Jim Denton. He says the earliest 30 visit I've ever scheduled.
Great. Let's see. Here's more. Here's Jackson Dart saying he will not change the way he plays.
It sounds like a broken record, Jackson, just asking you about the hits and taking them and protecting yourself and things like that. Is there anything you would have done different on that one?
No.
look, like, I understand the question, but like this is football. Like, I'm gonna get hit if I'm in the pocket or outside the pocket. Like, I feel like I've played this way my whole entire life. It shouldn't be like any shocker to anybody if you've followed along with my career. And we're not playing soccer out here. Like, you're gonna get hit, things happen. It's part of the game.
It seemed after that play, there were some times you could have run and maybe you didn't run as much until Tracy got hurt. Was that kind of your thought process on some of those plays where maybe you just didn't want to move, just kind of, go with a different idea?
Not really sure what plays you're talking about specifically.
I think there was some, well, I'll ask you were there times when you thought about running and maybe thought, hey, after that hit, maybe not run this time?
No, it didn't hurt, so that didn't play any thought in my mind.
Do you think taking that aggressiveness away from you would take you away from your game?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, you got to play smarter. Jerry, I wasn't saying you're a bandwagon fan. I just saw your comment up there. I'm not saying you're a bandwagon fan. I'm saying, look, last night was not a good night for Swayman. He had 18 saves, allowed 5 goals before Caposalo came in. But it was a bad night for him. And 5-4 makes it sound like it was closer than it was, because it wasn't. Bruins scored late, like 10 seconds to go in the game to make it 5-4. They were down 2-0. Red Wings were struggling. It wasn't a good night for the Bruins. But no, I know you're not a bandwagon fan.
Right.
I would never imply that. So,
walking it back here for a second, when it comes to Josh's comment and what you had mentioned earlier, Pete, it doesn't matter if you had people keep talking about the Patriots and their schedule, like, oh, it's an easy schedule, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it comes down to your coach. If your coach is not coaching well, you can have the easiest walk-on schedule everywhere. So for me, I don't know. I mean, again, I've never been a major Patriots fan, even though I lived in the New England area for my high school years. But nonetheless, I just like them to be back, to be competitive, and more than anything else, that Kansas City is falling apart and the Patriots are back up top.
Yeah, well, again, a long way to go. Not taking anything for granted here, but they are they're playing great. They're well coached. They're disciplined, and I can't say enough about Ellis not going after Johnson after that hit. Just backing away, being smart, not getting the retaliation penalty. Things are going not so well in Pittsburgh, and they're in Baltimore this week. Both teams are 6-6. Mike Tomlin believes solution to this. I mean, they were booing him. They were saying fire Tomlin. He hasn't won a playoff game in 8 years. I mean, he's been a fantastic coach, borderline great coach, but you haven't won a playoff game in 8 years. And I just think it's time. I think it's getting to that point in Pittsburgh, very similar to what the Patriots went through with Belichick. I just think a change of scenery is needed, and I'm not faulting Mike Tomlin. It's not his fault that Aaron Rodgers is a tool bag. It's not his fault. He didn't bring him in. He hijacked that franchise. The Rooneys let Aaron Rodgers hijack that franchise instead of the Steelers trying to go out and get somebody that could help that team. Aaron Rodgers is not going to get it done. The Steelers probably aren't going to make the playoffs.
Nope.
And I think they'll have a parting of the ways with Mike Tomlin. But he believes solutions to the Steeler problems can be found.
Because those same ingredients have produced 6 wins as well as 6 losses. And so, it's about how we cook it this week.
All right, and that's from 93.7. The Fan. Tomlin also believes that the Steelers went far with the internal frustrations and allowed them to beat themselves on Sunday.
I never want people to apologize for caring. And I view the frustration displayed last week in that way. Guys were in fight mode. They care. The game wasn't unfolding the way that we desire. They didn't necessarily express it appropriately. And so as a leader, it's about redirecting that and making sure it's channeled in the right ways. But also, how do we move on from that?
Mike Tomlin has confidence in himself as his Steelers and the Steelers' plan.
Oftentimes I get asked, I think, Brooke, you always ask, what gives you confidence? And sometimes I answer it in a colorful way, but it's what we do. It's no different than what you guys do. You guys might write a bad article or a couple of bad articles. Does it lessen your confidence in your ability to write articles the next time? I imagine it doesn't, because you've been doing it all your adult lives. And it's the same for us as individuals or a collective in this business. Certainly our last performance wasn't up to snuff, but I don't know that it lessens our belief in self or our ability to deliver individually and collectively moving forward.
All right, all these cuts from 93.7 The Fan. Here's more from Mike Tomlin on the team's identity.
Mike, do you have an identity as a team yet?
Yeah, 6-6, and I don't like it.
All right, finally, one last one from Mike Tomlin on sharing the frustration with the fans after they were chanting to have him fired on Sunday.
In general, I agree with them. And from this perspective, football is our game. We're in the sport entertainment business. And so if you root for the Steelers, entertaining them is winning. And so when you're not winning, it's not entertaining. And if you've been in this business, you understand that. And so I respect it. I share frustrations. I understand what makes this thing go, and winning is what makes this thing go.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, he's going to get fired. He's going to get fired, and it's going to be all Aaron Rodgers'
He will not get fired.
Okay.
There will be a mutual parting of the ways. That's what will happen. There'll be a mutual parting of the ways. They won't fire.
Let's go under. Let's bet. Damn it! I don't ever bet. I'm betting on this one. $20.
No, there'll be an understanding and a mutual parting of the ways. The Rooneys are not going to come out with any statements saying Mike Tomlin has been fired or relieved of his duties. It will be a nice, mushy little press conference at the end of the year, because I don't think the Steelers are making the playoffs, and it'll be a parting of the ways, and that'll be that. I don't think the Rooneys are going to do anything, that makes Mike Tomlin look like a jerk. I think they have too much respect for him. Anyway, that's just me. If you think that Rooney's going to come out and say he's fired, go ahead. I'll bet you.
You're going to lose $20. Okay.
You already owe me for Alex Golish. Be a double whammy. Not only did I say he was not going to be there, I said he was going to go to Auburn, and I was only sort of half tongue in cheek until it wasn't.
I still would like to know, though, other than Auburn, I would really love to know what happened, because it was basically written in stone he was going to go to Arkansas, and then he said at 1 a.m. Auburn all of a sudden just reached out to him.
Yeah, it's an interesting look. We talked to Jacob Davis the other day about it, and he thought it was because that guy Trey Shapp reported that was a done deal. And maybe it wasn't. I mean, we've seen this before. Hey, Manny Diaz was going to be the head coach at Temple until he was there. He was there. And ended up leaving for Miami. Lastly, here's head coach for Jacksonville, Liam Cohen from South Kingstown, Rhode Island, on the influence his family's had on his coaching style.
I grew up, like you mentioned, with educators, and education was so important to my family growing up. Coaching and teaching go hand in hand. Ultimately, you do these things, you coach, you teach, to try to make an impact in young people's lives. Ultimately, that's why you do this. I love scheme. You love to win. That is the result. But what you're doing along the way, whether it's at Maine, whether it's at Kentucky, or whether it's at the Jacksonville Jaguars, you're trying to ultimately make people better and help them along their path in life. And when you grew up, my mom was a history teacher. My dad was obviously a football coach. And everything he mentioned, they mentioned to me growing up, was what you do and how you perceive yourself, but also what you're trying to do to help people is make sure you can go home every day and be proud of what you see in the mirror. And that's no different than what I tell our players on Sundays before we go out and play. Hey, guys, win, lose, or draw, let's be able to go after this game, go home and look ourselves in the mirror and be proud of what we see.
All right, all good words, and Jaguars have been playing pretty well so far this year. We'll see if they can. We'll see if they can keep it up. Right now, my first guest in the morning is Bill Sparrow, senior betting analyst from bookies.com. But real quick before that, Angel, just finally got announced. So it's going to be announced in a couple of minutes here that the Eagles executive and former Jaguars GM Dave Caldwell will be leaving to be the new general manager of the Florida Gators, along with Coach Summerall. Good morning, Bill. How are you? You on safari?
No, it's my Red Sox.
Oh, you're
Red Sox siesta hat, because once again they're doing nothing. I did sort of have some breaking news this morning. Linda Pizzuti, head mistress of the Red Sox, posted a series of photos declaring that Fenway Farms is a 10.
Really?
So yeah, it was awesome. Like pictures of her at the garden that's on top of Fenway Park. They have a garden up top of Fenway Park now. So not only are they millions and millions of dollars under the competitive balance tax, and they do show interest in every free agent. She's also saving the planet in urban gardening. But you check my Twitter feed, check her Instagram feed. Fenway
Wow.
is a 10. So that's the big news. That is the big news coming from your Boston Red Sox, as we're going to get ready to probably see Alex Bregman play elsewhere next year.
Nothing would shock me. But we got Sonny Gray. Don't you remember Sonny Gray last week? All good.
Look, Sonny Gray, Sonny Siebert. I mean,
Sonny
it's like,
Corio.
let's bring up how many more washed up retreads. That would have been a good move like 5 years ago. But I mean, they this is how good Sonny Gray is that Chaim Bloom had to give John Henry $20 million to take him off his hands.
Mm-hmm. It's like what David Justice did, what the Yankees did to Dave Justice when he went to the A's. Now, it ended up working out back in the Moneyball era.
But that's because of Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
And then when Brad Pitt went to see the fake John Henry, he had to buy his secretary a sweater.
No, a scarf.
A scarf, that's right. A scarf.
That scene.
John Henry is one of my favorite all-time movie characters.
That scene, but he nails. And at first I thought it was the guy who played that was what's his name from K-Pax. Got in all sorts of trouble. Apparently, I read somewhere he might be homeless. What's his name?
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey. I thought that was Kevin Spacey.
He was the dollar store Kevin Spacey.
It wasn't Kevin Spacey. I forget the guy who did it.
It was like the low rate. It was like the Hallmark version of Kevin Spacey.
But I thought he nailed the Johnny. I mean, he had the mannerisms down and the quirkiness. I thought he had it down pat.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Unbelievable. So Cody Ponce is the Korean MVP. He went 17-1 last year with a 1.89 ERA, 252 strikeouts and 41 walks in 180 and 2/3 innings for the Hanwha Eagles. He's going to the Blue Jays. Think the Red Sox are in on that at all, at any way, shape, or form? I'm sure nobody ever heard of this guy, but scouts should have. And even though he's 31 years old, I mean, no spring chick, but nevertheless, 17-1 with a 1.89 ERA, the KBO MVP, going to the Blue Jays. Think the Red Sox are in on it ever?
No. I think with the Red Sox, it's GTFO when it comes to spending money on the KYGBZ MVP.
Well, the Blue Jays also added Dylan Cease, so I'm not a big
fan.
fan.
The Blue Jays are loaded. And let's not forget, I read somewhere where they were the AL East champions. No, they were the American League champions.
Yeah.
They were one outfield collision away from winning the World Series.
Or they were 5 or 6 different little tidbits in Game 7 that could have gone
about 40 chances to win the World Series. So let's please spare us the American League. No. They went and kicked ass in the playoffs. They crushed the Yankees, and they should have beaten the Dodgers, but they're cursed. And I got to see Mookie Betts turn a 6-3 double play to end the World Series, which was beautiful. That was my favorite moment of the season, when Mookie turned that double play to end the World Series. That was awesome. That was like porn.
Yeah.
That was better than anything the Red Sox did this year, because the Red Sox lost to the Yankees, so this year was a effing disaster. This year was a disaster. Because all they had to do was take 1 of 2 against New York, and the one guy who would have beaten the Yankees in Game 2 was eating plantains because they traded him to the frickin' Giants for nothing, for negative nothing.
Yep.
So that's what made this year so glorious, is that the sheeple and the people who work for John Henry, or the people who want to work for John Henry, or the sheeple, all lined up, except for my friend Dan, and said this was a great deal, this was a great trade, this was awesome, and it was like the sheeple, and the sheeple are getting so much of what they deserve, because now the sheeple can go to Fenway Farms and graze atop the roof of Fenway Park. Now the team's going to suck ass, You're going to have a 22-year-old third baseman who's already got injury wrist problems, because I want my third baseman to have a wrist problem at 22. And I want my future All-Star Hall of Famer to have a back problem when he's 21, because that's what I want in my team. I don't want Alex Bregman at third base because that's going to cost too much money. But the sheeple, all you freaking idiot sheeple, idiot, moron, idiots can graze at Fenway Farms because it's a freaking 10 because Queen Linda said so. All hail the Queen.
She must be taking a lot of heat for that, though, right? I mean, it's just.
Are you kidding me? They're lined up around Jersey Street / Jockey Way, down Brookline Avenue to Simmons College, where my wife went to school before it became Simmons University. They're lined up to kiss her ass. They're lined up to kiss her plastic infused ass.
They're gonna pick some fresh basil up there. And,
yeah. Well, after they pull the crops, the sheep will go in and graze and eat all the leftovers in the grass, and they'll clear the field. Bah! Because they're freaking sheeple idiots. I can't believe how dumb, how idiotic and moronic the Red Sox fan base has become in the last 5 years. It's like all their brains have rotted. They're so like compliant now. They're so like, oh yes, we need to save under the competitive balance tax, and oh, these young guys are going to be awesome. Yeah, if they can play more than 40 freaking games a year.
I'm so glad the Red Sox didn't do what the Mets did and signed Williams to a 3-year, $51 million deal because he sucked last year. He had a career worst 4.79 ERA. I know he saved 18 to 22 games, but that. Go ahead. Go to the Mets. That's the kind of deal I actually thought the Red Sox might pull the trigger on, something like that. And I would have been pissed if they did. But it doesn't look like they're going to be able to. I don't know. Unless there's some big story out there right now. And I know it's only December 4th. I get that, or December 3rd. I get that. But I just don't see how this team is going to go and get any type of big time free agent. I don't see it. I'll believe it when I see it.
You know, the other night during the Patriots game, as they continued their march to Super Bowl 60, they put up the graphic that said Kraft, to his everlasting credit, spent $300 million, $200 million of it, which is actually cash guaranteed. So that's actually real money. And lo and behold, they're the best team at football. Imagine that. You spend a little, Kraft spend a little money now. He got his coach, he got his quarterback. I ripped him for 5 years. I can't rip him for not spending this year because he's actually done it. And you know, this is what happens. You know, you get some good
wisely in all the right spots.
Yeah, because you have the quarterback. That's the key. You don't have to spend on the quarterback. The Patriots have 3 more years of this guy at discount bargain rates to where they can spend all the money on all the other players and maybe actually, God forbid, win another Super Bowl, because this kid's obviously good enough to do it. So, you know, he waited. I'll give him credit. He waited. He got his coach. He got his quarterback. He got his offensive coordinator. He's making one last run to glory. And, you know, maybe everybody was bitching at the trade deadline. And I may have said on this show that, you know, perhaps it's a sign that they believe in the players and they've just gone on a rocket ship ride since the trade deadline. You know, where no one's, have you heard anyone complain about the Patriots not making moves at the trade deadline since like maybe 2 days after the trade deadline? No. Because to their credit, I always credit people when they do the right thing. And in this case, the right thing was to do nothing. And it's obviously manifested itself because they haven't lost. They haven't lost a game since September. So obviously,
and the game that they did lose, and I say it all the time, but saying it, Angel will back me up. It was a blessing in disguise, that Steeler loss. And that's when I knew, and incredibly, that's how I knew they were going to be good. When you turn the ball over 5 times the way they did and still had a chance to win it with 28 seconds to go, I was like, you know what? This team is going to be good. They just got to tweak a couple of things here and basically take care of the football. And I really thought they were going to be okay. They haven't lost since. You go back to the Raiders. I went back and watched some of the Raider game the other day just for shits and giggles, and it's like two different. If you didn't see the Patriot logo, you wouldn't have known that was them playing in that game.
Drake May had only played like 20 games before that, and he's hit his stride. I believe, in my opinion, that I think the difference this year has been Steph Diggs, because if you go back to the the Buffalo game, you go back to that Buffalo game, there were 2 catches in that game that only Steph Diggs could have made that won him the game. And that was the game that triggered this streak. And to me, he's the difference. That they haven't had a guy. People talk about they don't have a one. Are you kidding me? This guy is like all pro, all world. He is like a non-psychotic Antonio Brown. If you get the ball within 10 feet of him, he's going to catch it. He's like a D-Hop in his prime. And he has like 65, 70 catches or whatever it is. That's pretty good. And he's not the crux of the offense, but he's been the guy to bail him out. Everybody forgets that onside kick in the game against Tampa. He was the one who went up and got it, and he got absolutely murdered on that play.
Yep, he did.
That was another huge play this season that was pivotal, because somebody else could have easily fumbled that ball, and you don't know what's going to happen. He went up, he skied that ball, he got it, and he got absolutely clobbered. So he's made a handful of plays that there's been no Patriot on that roster since maybe Gronk, who you could throw the ball anywhere and the guy would get it. And Diggs is that first guy they've had since Gronk who you just put the ball up and he gets it. And to me, when you're a guy like Drake May and you have that valve, that guy who's going to be there and bail you out, it gives you a ton of confidence. I don't think Steph Diggs has got nearly enough credit. I think everything is like a little key, like the one little key that unlocks. He's unlocked the door of that offense.
Well, the thing is, really, why he doesn't get a lot of credit nationally. And I know the Patriots are kind of becoming the media darlings again, except for guys like idiots like Cam Newton. But this team is so unselfish, and they do not talk about who care. This is very similar to what they went through for years under the 20 years. They don't give a damn who catches the ball. Hunter Henry's another guy that is just phenomenal. I mean, he's like, I think you could apply exactly what you said sort of to Hunter Henry as well. That guy stayed here for one reason and one reason only, because of Drake May. He could have gone other places, probably for more money, decided to stay here. But nobody on this team cares who gets the credit. That's the best part, is Stephon Diggs is not being any type of a diva. He's not complaining. He had 3 catches last week or 2 last week, and but they all of them, 8 different receivers had catches last week. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, and the poise that this young man has shown in Drake May, I'm blown away how he looks like an 8-year veteran that's won like several Super Bowls. It is amazing the poise that he has. And just think about how much better they're going to be in a couple of weeks when their offense, they weren't even fully healthy last game, and they still did what they did to the Giants. They could have very easily, Bill, gone into that game. We got the bye week coming. We'll play a 2-10 team. Granted, they've been playing well, the Giants, against some other teams. Probably could have won 3 of those games, the last 3 that they played, if not for but they could have gone into that game with a sloppy sort of attitude, and they didn't. They just came out kicking ass. And one of my favorite plays, as I've said the last couple of days, obviously the Christian Ellis hit, but what I loved is the non-retaliation after Johnson got in his face. He just backed off. A lot of times, a lot of players would have punched and sucker punt, whatever, and got the retaliation penalty as well to even things up. He didn't do it. Instinct immediately. Like, that was a hit. Jackson Dart, that's what you do. You tiptoe out of bounds. You're going to get smashed. It's not the first time. Probably won't be the last. Not a smart move. But when he backed off, I was like, that is fantastic. That was like Travion Henderson looking to the sideline. Should I go down? I mean, that is the kind of discipline this team has that you do not see with a lot of other teams, which is why I think they're going to make a deep run of the playoffs.
Oh, the other good thing I love about this team is you can look at 80 different reasons why they're good. And that's another one right there, because that's the coaching. That's 100% coaching. That's 100%, from day one of practice, discipline, and the Travion Henderson play or the non-retaliation, which that struck me the other night as well. All of that's coached. Like don't be stupid. Let the other guys be stupid. You know, what is it? The Patriots are making other teams look stupid again. We saw this for 20 years under Belichick. And I think Vrabel, you know, he took so much from Belichick, but he also left a lot behind. And it's kind of like, you know, the second version of the guy who takes all the good and leaves all the bad. Where you know, Belichick and Vrabel can connect with these guys, and you know, he had that college time and that, you know, his kind of time in the wilderness in Cleveland, whatever you want to call it. And so he plus he has a kid in college, so he kind of understands this generation. I think he understands the guys that he's coaching very well, and he understands that, you know, they want a hug, right? They all want a hug. And that's okay. There's, you know, when Brady went to Tampa, we found out there are different ways to win. The Patriot way was a successful, but it's not the only way, right? There are different ways to win. You can win like prime Belichick. You know, you can win like Brady and Gronk living it up in Tampa, and maybe, we don't know yet, maybe you win like with the touchy-feely Vrabel, except he's kicking ass in practice and kicking ass, you know, when guys make mistakes and making sure everybody's on time for meetings and all that other stuff. There's a lot of different ways to win. Of course, you need a quarterback in every scenario. That's the one constant in the NFL, is you need a quarterback. That you must have a quarterback. And the Patriots, you know, I don't know, maybe Tom Brady spent a weekend in Charlotte back in 2000, 2001. Might have swung by a couple of fertility clinics, made a few donations. I have no idea. But, you know, it's like, you know, maybe it was just a clone. Maybe they just took some of Brady's hair and, you know, maybe a fingernail and put it in a blender, and Drake May came out. I have no idea. I don't know.
I think Josh McDaniel has, obviously Vrabel does, but Josh McDaniel
Yeah.
has a lot to do.
Yeah, and there's you know, why are the Patriots good? I'll give you 50 reasons. And another one is, you know, you have Josh McDaniels, who only has to worry about Drake May and only has to worry about the offense. You know, that's, you know, you have guys like of course Monty Kiffin was the same way, right? He could have been head coach 50 times. He didn't want to be. You know, he focuses on the defense, and what do the Bucks do? They go to the Super Bowl and win because they score 40 touchdowns on defense against the Raiders. So, and I, you know, Josh McDaniels should never be a head coach again, unless it's like a high school team, because, you know, you're just allowing him to focus on what he does. And with Drake May, you have someone, and I, you know, when the Patriots drafted this guy, I wrote this in the Herald, and I talked about how he was like Brady because he was the youngest kid in the family, and it didn't matter that Brady had sisters and Drake May was brothers. He got the crap kicked out of him every day of his life when he was a little kid, and he learned to not bitch, to not moan, to not cry, and he was always having to play above his weight when he was a kid. And when you're like that, it makes you a certain way. It makes, like Drake May came here fully developed as a person, not as a quarterback, but all the other stuff that might kill somebody else. He already had all that. He's like, whatever you do to me isn't going to bother me, because I remember when I was 10 and my 14-year-old brother kicked my ass 40 times. and so whatever you're going to do to me doesn't throw me.
How about being sixth string on Michigan to start, basically?
Well, it's the same thing. It's literally the same. You know, it's that's what struck me when they drafted him, was the similarities in the background between him and Brady. Of course, the difference is his parents were athletes. Brady, it was just his older sisters. But, you know, May has been in a competitive athletic environment his entire life. And he's clearly the most talented in the family, much the same way that Brady was, even though he was the youngest. And I only say that because I'm the youngest in my family. But it makes a huge difference. I mean, Mac Jones, he was in pageants when he was a kid. He was like doing pageants and beauty photos. And Drake May was playing in the driveway until it got dark, and then taking elbows in the head when his mother wasn't looking.
Yeah.
And that stuff matters. So, you know, the kid's his arm is like a genetic freak show. Like, that's genetics. He was born with that ability. And then you have a McDaniels and again, Hunter Henry and Steph Diggs, you know, and the others, putting him in situations to where he's not going to screw up because these guys are catching the ball. Like he was throwing like that that fourth quarter interception every game last year. He doesn't do that anymore because Josh McDaniels is saying, okay, here's your fourth read, take a dive or throw the ball out of bounds. And it's really awesome to see how he's developed, because a lot of us believe that he had that potential. There were a lot of idiots who said they should have taken J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix. I mean, those idiots, the internet doesn't lie. You can go back and look it up. But I was in Drake May. I was a Drake May guy from day one, proud to say. And I was in the tank for Tom for 20 years, and I'm baking for Drake.
I was a Drake May guy way before J.J. McCarthy. You didn't. His high school numbers were off the chart, but he never had to lead Michigan with his arm. They had the best running game in the country, so I wasn't exactly sure. And now I think people are shitting all over him a little too much. It's his rookie year. He didn't get to play last year. It's his rookie year. He's playing like what a rookie plays like. He had a really good come from behind drive, a game the Vikings should have won against the Bears 2 weeks ago. Special teams gives up a freaking, 70-yard return right after that, and they go on to lose. So the kid showed me some poise. I mean, he's a rookie. Shadur Sanders last week, he didn't lose that game. He looked good because Stefanski's an idiot. I mean, the two-time coach of the year, you put your team in position to lose. 3 of those fourth down conversions tried to, and Sanders isn't even on the field. You try to do Wildcat run up the middle. I mean, that's not. Shadur Sanders looked damn good in that game. Surprisingly so. Poised, made some good throws. His coach put him in a horrible position against a really good team. Score's not indicative how close that game was with the 49, but that's the difference between coaching. That's coaching.
Yeah, I think Shadur's got some talent, and maybe if he gets in the right situation, I'm sure there are a lot of teams kicking themselves for not taking him.
Pittsburgh.
So exactly, because he's definitely got some raw talent. I mean, he has got some talent, and there's a guy who would definitely thrive under like a Josh McDaniels or the right Dion approved coach. I don't think Kevin Stefanski's on that list. I don't think he'll be there next year anyway. So, but it with Drake May, it's so cool to see this kid who's like doing everything right. He's, I'm, been married a long time. He's married. He's married the girl he was dating since he was, in 7th grade. She's doing cooking videos now.
Yeah.
I mean, she has a freaking master's in finance from North Carolina. And I was told that, she wanted to work, get like a job in Boston at Fidelity. And she was told by some very high people that the wife of a quarterback should not be working in the business world and should be sort of home taking care of her husband. And so she has chosen to just, do what she does, the charitable stuff, the social stuff. But yeah, if you're working 70 hours a week in finance, for Fidelity on State Street in Boston, you're going to be working 70 hours a week. Your husband's going to be working 70 hours a week. You're never going to see each other, and you're both going to be miserable. So it is, it's a really good story. I've said it before. I would happily adopt them both. And make them my pets.
Now, what's going to happen with North Carolina? Speaking of adopting someone, would you adopt Jordan Hudson, whatever she calls herself? I still think Belichick is not making it to the. What's unbelievable?
Not with Duke in the ACC playoff.
Don't even get me started.
I mean, if Duke manages to win that game, I think Belichick will be fired on the spot.
I can't get into the committee stuff. I spent 45 minutes on it, and it's just the amount of hypocrisy that comes out of the mouth of Hunter Yurachek. And what aggravated me, here I am saying I'm not going to get into it. You know what aggravated me more about last night? I have to sit here. Not only do I have to defend my Hurricanes, and I shouldn't, I have to actually defend Notre Dame because they could get bumped out. Alabama moves up, which with Yurachek called a great gutsy 4th down drive at a shitty Auburn team. And not only is that a ridiculous statement to make as to why they got bumped ahead of Notre Dame, nobody, for whatever reason, is talking about Oklahoma barely squeaking by a bad LSU team at home in the final 5 minutes to win 17-13, a game they were trailing most of that game. That doesn't even get brought up. They don't move. Style points apparently don't matter in Norman, Oklahoma, or in South Bend, but they do matter in other spots. I just, the hypocrisy, the crap that comes out of this committee, and the fact when Reese Davis asked him, what are you going to do if BYU wins or BYU loses and blah, blah, blah. And he said they haven't addressed that scenario. How in the hell in that committee do you not have like 7 whiteboards up if BYU wins, if Texas Tech wins, if BYU loses by this much or Texas wins by that in the ACC? If Duke wins, Miami's definitely going to the eight. There's no question about it. What about Tulane and James Madison? Should they win their respective conferences, or should they lose their respective conference championship games? Then what happens? What group of 5 team is in? Is it Navy, the higher ranked? There's a whole bunch of whiteboard issues and they don't have anything. And it's only going to be the first time that they all watch together. Is it going to be on Saturday and probably Friday night as well, because that's when the other 2 conference championship games takes place. I think it's pathetic. They're a torrential flood of illogic, as my good friend Mr. Spock would say. It's just frightening. None of it makes any sense. Their criteria, which they claim to cherish, they don't follow it at all. They just make up shit as they go along. I can't stand it.
Well, I can't believe that they haven't watched games together all year. I mean, that's just lazy. That's pathetic. Look, if you want to be on this committee, you need to be on Saturday, whether it's remote or you're all flying into the bunker. You have the Deca box up on your screen, and you're watching every game you can watch. Hell, I watch every game. I mean, I try to pick college games, so I try to watch as many games as I can, and that's kind of my job. So, I'm not saying I'm good or bad. I'm just saying I do watch a lot of college football because I do try to handicap these games. So if I'm just trying to make picks against the line or totals maybe or straight up money line games. But these guys are actually doing something legitimately serious. And, when you want to talk about a gutsy fourth quarter call, Auburn pissed that game away.
They did.
They had like 4 unbelievably stupid.
But Alabama moves up.
And and Auburn still had a shot to win it.
I know.
And so I to me, that was more Kalen DeBoer saying, I'm coach for life. I give him credit for the call. Auburn definitely wasn't expecting it. So I'll give him credit for that call. But that drive was all like just stupid penalties. They should have never been in that situation. I'll give him credit for the call, 100%. But for that guy to say that, it tells me he didn't watch the game. And that was the only big game on. The LSU game was a snooze fest.
It was. But I was
interested. Auburn game was awesome.
I was interested from Miami standpoint, and I said, this is exactly what I want. Oklahoma has no business being there. If Miami played Oklahoma anywhere in this universe, they'd blow the fuck out of them. They would beat that team so badly. Martin would be on his ass the entire game. And they stay put by barely squeaking out a win in the last 5 minutes against a bad LSU team in complete disarray. And I got to sit here, I got to defend Notre Dame because they get bumped. Alabama moves up ahead of them because of a gutsy call against a shitty Auburn team. Okay, it's a run. Now, you know me, I'm not one of these people that gets caught up in sexiness of wins, but this committee for the last 3 years clearly does. It clearly matters. Yet they reward Alabama, and they've done it to Miami in the past. They threw Miami down to 18 after the SMU loss, assuming they were going to lose again. Well, it backfired on them because all they've done is clobber everybody and get up there. The BYU stuff is, the hypocrisy with everything that they say. Some of their criteria applies to some teams, not the other. You cannot justify Alabama moving up and Oklahoma staying where they are. You cannot. There's no way on this God's green earth you can justify just those 2 moves alone. This is ridiculous.
Well, I think what the committee should do is actually do what the NFL and the NBA, Major League Baseball, set criteria for tiebreakers. In other words, establish in writing what is the most important thing. Now, in every other sport on planet Earth, head-to-head is the first tiebreaker. It's the first tiebreaker in the NFL. It's the first tiebreaker in the NBA. It's the first tiebreaker in Major League Baseball. I'm sure it's the first tiebreaker in women's soccer or any other sport. Every other sport on the planet, head-to-head is the first tiebreaker. except with these idiots. And I don't understand that. And I don't understand why not put your criteria in writing? Because that
Well,
way.
it kind of is. It is. They just don't follow it. It's there. It has all the criteria there. They just make up stuff as they go along. They don't follow it. And then Alabama losing to Florida State, that happened early in the season. That really doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Texas.
That should have been an automatic DQ.
Texas,
just like losing to Florida.
Texas losing to Gainesville, which I predicted.
If you lose to Florida, you should be disqualified for 30 years.
You got Sarkisian, yesterday or 2 days ago talking about he's ripping the shit out of Miami for throwing a late touchdown, in their game. But against NC State. But I mean, this is what the committee, unfortunately, that part I agree. You shouldn't have to have your first string out there trying to have sexy points when the game is well out of reach. There's no reason for Miami to have their ones out there the last several games when they had games that have been all blowouts. They've won by average of 17 to 35 points in all 5 of them. And you're risking harm to your first stringers because the committee, who the claims doesn't want people to run up the score, but they clearly do. It's not right. It's not fair to the kids. It's a bad look for everybody because Vanderbilt did the same thing to Kentucky. Notre Dame did the same thing to Syracuse with a lacrosse player playing quarterback. They did the same thing. So everybody's guilty of it because they're trying to impress the committee. You should not have to try to impress the committee when the game is well in hand. Your team should be in victory formation, and we're throwing the ball all over the place, all over the country. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's why it was good to pick Indiana and Ohio. That's why Ohio State's unbeaten on the line.
Yeah.
Because they're blowing everybody out because they will have to. And that's something to keep in mind, when you're picking college games next year, like Notre Dame. Notre Dame was awesome against the line down the stretch because they were crushing everybody.
Yeah, so was Miami the last 5 years.
Yeah,
They covered everybody.
And Indiana and Ohio State in particular. So,
but now let me just get to your other point that you made, just a good one about, and I don't know if you saw this, it came out a couple of days ago. Alabama has already deciding that they are going to change the schedule. This is what's going to happen in college football. Because obviously these games, to this committee anyway, don't matter. They just took USF off their schedule, South Florida, bumped it from next year to 2032. Guess what they replaced them with? Chattanooga. So, and then they added, next year, they also added, Alabama did, East Carolina. So that is what is happening in college football. That is what's going to happen. All these great games and college matchups that we love at the end of August, beginning of September, the way this is trending, they're all going to go by the wayside. It's a bad look for college football. And Alabama reschedules USF for Chattanooga and then adds ECU to your schedule. It is ridiculous.
Well, it's good. I tell you, between that, you look at that and you look at the fact that, so basically we have no standard to determine a playoff. You have a schedule that forces coaches and players to leave going into the college playoff. And Charlie Baker is probably going to write another note about prop bets. So, you have no leadership here. That's the problem. That's the problem. Like in 1,000% of any failure in any system, in any organization, in any company, usually the lack of leadership creates a vacuum. It creates chaos. It creates failure. Right now, there's no leadership in college sports. Charlie Baker is doing a crappy job. I like him personally. Nice guy. He's very congenial.
Yep.
Like him, friendly guy. He's a politician, but he's doing an ass job right now because there's nobody in charge of this. This is like the freaking fall of the Soviet Union. Everybody is doing whatever they want. And it's, and I don't blame Ole Miss. I don't blame Lane Kiffin. I don't blame players. I don't blame Alabama for doing what they're going to do. I don't blame Sarkisian for bitching about the Ohio State loss, although that didn't keep him out of the playoff. The loss to Florida did. Mm-hmm. But everyone is trying to survive and thrive in a system where the rules are always changing. And it's like almost they figured what could be the worst possible scenario to figure out who the best team in college football is. And oh, by the way, we're going to have this kind of objective, kind of subjective system. And at the same time, we're going to throw in this calendar where coaches and players are going to leave teams as they get into the playoff.
But that's what you just nailed it. And that's the problem. Nothing is, you talk about the police and synchronicity. Nothing is synced up here. None of it makes any sense at all. None of it. The timeline of everything. And by the way, today's National Signing Day, by the way.
Yeah.
But just to throw that out there. Today's National Signing Day. We've already seen that tight end flip from Mississippi to LSU because of Lane Kiffin. And I'm still wondering how many kids are not going to play in that college football playoff because Lane Kiffin, they're going to go play for LSU, and he may say, you know what, don't injure yourself. I got room for you on my team. I'm sure there's going to be some of that, not just with them, but these other coaches as well, although they are allowing Summerall to coach in the championship game, which I'm stunned at. That anybody gets to do that.
When he showed up in Gainesville the other day, and there was like literally nobody there except the cheerleaders.
Yep.
You could have gone to any fast food joint on Archer Road, like the Zaxby's, or like the freaking Chick-fil-A. I guarantee you, the line at Zaxby's was longer. That at that moment, when the new coach for the University of Florida arrived on campus, there were more people in the Zaxby's drive-thru on Archer Road than there were to welcome this guy. We don't need Billy Napier 2.0. I'm getting some freaking Zax wings, some Zax toast, and some more freaking toast, and some fries to go with my Zax wings, toast, and fries, and a big ass Diet Coke because I'm eating fries. And I can't go to see the new Florida football coach because I'm in line at Dunks getting a freaking regular with freaking.
I don't understand, and maybe they approached him and he just turned it down. The Alex Golesh thing, how he is not there, is fascinating to me. He was going to be at Arkansas for whatever reason. I said tongue in cheek, only half tongue in cheek, he was going to be the next head coach of Auburn. I said that a month ago. Angel will back me up, but I don't understand how Florida doesn't go after Alex. If you're going to go after Summerall, how do you not go after Alex Golesh unless he turned it down? Here's a guy who's recruited well. He turned an 111 program into a really good Group of 5 school, a nationally ranked team, and who can obviously recruit in the state of Florida, and you don't go after him, or you don't make a significant run at him. You think John Summerall is better than him? Unless they did, and I don't know about it, and Golesh said, I'd rather go to Arkansas, or I'd rather go to Auburn. Maybe I'm stunned because I haven't seen anything or heard from anybody that said the Gators seriously pursued him, which to me is stupid on their part. Once again, Summerall's a fine coach. I don't know what he's going to do up there. I don't know. What is a fetish with Louisiana coaches that Gainesville has? I don't get it.
Maybe they can cook. I love the fact that his name is Summerall and everybody's calling him Summerall as if he's related to Pat.
No.
He has no E in his name.
No, different spelling, yes.
And you can't spell win without an E either, but he's not going to win, so it doesn't matter. I mean, just the fact that nobody can pronounce this guy's freaking name is a testament to like the fact that he's a complete freaking no-name. And they replaced a stiff with another stiff. They took Billy Napier and hired Nilly Bapier. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke, and it's sad because my God, I had 2 freaking organ transplants at that place. That my son has an engineering degree, got hired literally the day that he finished his classes. He went for a job interview and got hired the next day, and has been working at the same company for 7 years.
You are literally part of that university. You are literally physically and mentally part of that university.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, my son's a Gator. My liver's a Gator. So yeah, I guess that makes me a Gator, and same with Amy. She's a Florida fan. Because they didn't have a good football program at Simmons. but you have this great, it's a top 5, 10 public university.
Yep.
And they do so well in so many sports. They won a freaking NCAA championship 8 months ago in basketball.
I know.
And they can't seem to get out of their way with football. I don't understand it. There are so many. I mean, Jesus Christ, Jimmy Johnson built a dynasty just recruiting from, Tampa to Miami.
They should have went after Pat Fitzgerald instead. They let him go to. Now he's at Michigan State. Something like that. I mean, I don't know what to think. I don't know what Summerall's going to do. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand though how you don't go after Golesh, the guy who coached in Florida, can recruit in Florida, And I'm sure a lot of his players would bail out of that bowl game or would have followed him to Gainesville. And not happening for whatever reason. Maybe he saw the writing on the wall. Maybe he said, you know what? Because I saw his press conference. I saw the whole half hour. He had commanded that room, the Auburn people. He was getting standing ovations. And
yeah, they welcomed him like Caesar.
He's an amazing story anyway, coming from
and he gets that huge crowd, and they're playing the song, and then this guy Summerall, whose name isn't even Summerall, shows up, and he's like, "God damn, that line at Zaxby's was around the block. We should have had this at Zaxby's."
Hey, last thing here before we depart, and thanks again to Bill Sparrows from the senior betting analyst, great senior betting analyst at bookies.com. The Show Me State, as you said, showing a lot of money. The first day the Show Me State shows up in the first 24 hours in Missouri, 2.6 million geolocation and 250,000 accounts in day one. Good God. Is that a record?
Well, it was, I mean, they had 180,000 of those were pre-reg, but still, 250,000 accounts and in a state that didn't have gambling, sports betting from scratch is pretty good. It's not, I mean, listen, Massachusetts, and I freaking cry like every time I say this, like Massachusetts is virtually number one in the country per capita of degenerates. There's 7 million people in Massachusetts, and they have 2.1 million online sports betting accounts, and only half of those belong to my brother, his dog, and my nephew. And it's so awesome. I mean, I freaking cry every time I think about it. When the numbers come out every month, Massachusetts is usually fourth or fifth, but per capita, they're only second behind New York, just barely. And it's so, it is so just, I don't know. I can't verbalize how proud I am. $890 million last month and handle. Of course, the Patriots went 4-0. And I compared it to the year before, which was $750 million. So the Patriots going 4-0 added about $140 million to the betting handle in Mass this year, in the month of October. And no, I think the launch in Missouri was good. That's a fun number. The geotag, the geo check-ins. That's when you go to sign in on your account. That means that 2.6 million times somebody logged in or attempted to log into their sports betting app, because that company GeoComply does the geofencing for the state. They pretty much do it for everybody. They do.
That's how you show digital numbers in radio, like on this show as well. Those numbers are big as far as getting advertisers.
Yeah, and so that was good. I like that data. That's good data to see. And the heat map tells you that everybody was clustered around St. Louis and Kansas City, which was, no surprise, but still, you always want data to back your assertions. I think the operators were pleased. They weren't overwhelmed. You have to understand too that a lot of people in Missouri, had opened accounts in Illinois and in Kansas, because those states were close to the population centers, and those states have had sports betting for like 2 and 4 years, I believe. So a lot of people who are predisposed to wager in Missouri already had their DraftKings account in Illinois or Kansas, so they had a you just sort of re-log in and you re-register, but the accounts themselves are already established in other states. It'll be interesting to see, the handles. Like North Carolina has been impressive for me, and I think you're going to see awesome numbers in North Carolina now that the Panthers are kicking ass. A lot of money is going to be bet on the Chiefs. They're terrible against the spread, so I think you're going to actually see the books actually make some money. That awesome run of favorites straight up has frozen. It's flipped, which they always do. Markets always revert to the mean. Please remember that. Put that on my headstone. So Kansas City going 12-0 in one-score games last year, then going 1-5 in one-score games this year. Or Denver going 0-8 in one-score games last year, or whatever it was, and then now they're 8-0. So those things always flip. They always, the key is to know when to jump off the bus, right? Like, look at the Lions. The last 4 years, from 2021 through last season, the Lions were 49-23 against the freaking number. If you had just bet the Lions for 4 years, you would have more than doubled your money,
Mhm.
and you could retire.
Yep.
And that's on the line. So that's
Mhm.
like minus 110,
Yep.
maybe
Yeah.
even minus 120,
Mhm.
whatever it is. That's the spread.
Yep.
This year, there's 6-6 against the spread
Mhm.
because the odds makers have caught up, right? So you know that like the Panthers are one game behind the Patriots. The Patriots are 7-4-1. The Panthers are 6-3-1 on the line. So you know you could see it. And the Jets are 7-4 on the number this year. So whoever said great, you know, good teams win, great teams cover, no, because the Jets are 7-4 against the spread, and then the freaking Jets.
Absolutely.
So what you're seeing, I think the overall trend this year, at least the second half of the season, and I think you'll see it in the earnings reports in the fourth quarter for a lot of sports books, is that the books are doing well. It's been a very profitable 6 or 7 weeks across the NFL for sports books because you're seeing favorites lose outright, and when the favorites lose outright, your parlays crash. You know, they go down the tubes, and that's, you know, when the books make a lot of money. So when you see favorites losing like they've been losing straight up, I mean, look at Black Friday and Thanksgiving. Favorites went 0-4 straight
Mhm.
up.
Yep.
That pays for, like, you know, the freaking MGM's hotel in
Yep.
Macau.
Yep.
Right? That's how they make all those money. That's how they build those hotels or whatever. You know, when you have 3 favorites losing outright on Thanksgiving, that's just like they're just printing the money in the back and taking it to Kansas City. So
Unbelievable.
very good money profit wise for the books. You know, this whole prediction markets thing. You had Underdog, which was licensed to operate in Missouri. They gave up their license because they instead chose to operate a prediction market. DraftKings and FanDuel are going to launch their prediction markets within the next month. Of course, not in states where there's sports betting, of course. That for them, what they want to do, I've talked to regulators, I've talked to operators. The deal there is they want online casino in places like Massachusetts and Illinois and elsewhere, states that don't have online casino. And so they're getting into prediction markets to leverage as a leverage point against states like Massachusetts and the others to legalize online casino. Because right now, once DraftKings and FanDuel launch their prediction markets, the Mass Gaming Commission, the Arizona Gaming Commission, the Michigan Gaming Control Board, the Ohio Casino Control Commission, the New Jersey Department of Gaming Regulation, they all have different names.
Yep.
They're all going to have to decide eventually whether or not they're going to punish these. You know, it doesn't matter. Like if you look at these rules, these laws, and these agreements, whatever DraftKings does in California can be used against them in Massachusetts or Ohio or New York or New Jersey. That's how this works. So our friends on the Massachusetts Gaming Commission, I mean, they're literally in the middle of it right now. They are literally trying to decide how to handle this.
Mhm.
And they're trying to buy time. And of course, it's every state. It's not just Massachusetts. I use Massachusetts because of us, and you know, it's Massachusetts. But what they do is very indicative of what's happening elsewhere. I mean, right now in Massachusetts, they are still trying to figure this out. You know, the Attorney General has sued Kelshi and Robinhood. Polymarket's not up yet. So, you know, right now the gaming commission is sort of a de facto partner in that lawsuit. So right now they're suing a company for offering sport contracts in Massachusetts. And at the same time, they're regulating a company that's soon to be offering sport event contracts in places like California and Texas. So that is a massive issue. Next week, major flex here. I will be in Puerto Rico at a conference of gaming legislators. All the gaming legislators in the country meet 3 times a year.
Nice.
They're going to be in Puerto Rico next week, and this is going to be the issue because these are the regulators and the legislators who decide what they're going to do. And I'm going to ask everybody the same question, and everybody else will be asking them the same question. But you know, that's what they pay me to do. You know, so again, we're still in that kind of tumultuous flux phase in the sports betting space. What does this mean for someone in Massachusetts or Florida or wherever? What this means is that if you want to, you can, for now, go to Kelshi and open an account. It's legal. It's 100% legal. There's nothing wrong with it, morally or otherwise. And you can trade on spreads, and you can trade on outcomes. And if you really want to get into the weeds, you can compare the potential payoffs on the trading market versus what you might get at a book, and find yourself the best deal. You got to do a little bit of math. But that's an option. So it's better for the consumer because you have another choice now with prediction markets.
Bill,
I'm not sure if it's legal.
Yeah.
Courts are going to decide that. I get asked all the time, well, what do I think is going to happen? It's going to the Supreme Court. What is the Supreme Court going to do? I have no effing idea what the Supreme Court's going to do. Nobody does.
Yep.
I can tell you it's going to come down to 3 justices. I don't know how they're going to rule. But eventually the Supreme Court's going to sort this out. But until that happens, in the meantime, if you like to wager / trade, you have a whole nother option now with prediction markets. And you can also, I won $67 on Dancing with the Stars last week because I knew Robin Irwin was going to win this thing. I'm pissed I didn't bet on him 2 weeks ago. But I realized, like, oh my God, I got to do this. So I won myself $65.
Nice.
Because he won Dancing with the Stars last week. You can do that. It's legal. It's not against the law. It's available.
Mm-hmm.
And I put up a big ass story about prediction markets yesterday. I've been covering them almost as long as anybody else has, at least for 2 years. I posted it on my Twitter feed if anybody wants to read it. It's at bookies.com, the ultimate guide to prediction markets. It explains everything, how they work, pros, cons. Both CEOs the Kalshi CEO follows me on Twitter. The Polymarket CEO, I messaged him the other day. He messaged me back. He said, I'm a big fan. That was flattering.
Oh,
so I'm trying to cover these industries like I cover the sports books because they're part of this ecosystem now. And there's going to be a lot of litigation that's going to be decided in the next 18 months. And 2 years from now, we'll know what the picture is going to look like. But in the meantime, if you want to bet, I would seriously consider, opening an account on Kalshi and just having that as an option. Again, if you're in the United States and you're over 18, it's 1,000% legal for now. No one's going to go to jail if the Supreme Court says these sports event contracts are not legal. You'll just get your money back or whatever the mechanism is. But that's not going to happen for a while. So take advantage of it. If you're betting and you want to look for value and you're in a state like Florida where you only have one sports book and they have limited offerings, you should 100% open up an account on Kalshi because it just gives you more options. It gives you better pricing, and it allows you to trade on some things that, like Drake May MVP. He's basically even money on the prediction markets. He's minus 125 at DraftKings. He's like plus 105 at Kalshi. So if you want to bet on Drake May for MVP like I did, you would do it on a trading market because you'll get a better price. That's just the kind of stuff that a consumer, it's good for the consumer. This right now is good for the consumer. So the takeaway for any audience that I talk to about this would be that it's good for the consumer because the consumer now has another option. It's a little different. It's a little bit more, complicated. You got to do some math, but it's legal. Otherwise, I don't recommend anything that's not legal. And if and when it becomes illegal, they're going to have to pull the offerings because they're regulated by the federal government.
Bill, awesome stuff as always, and safe travels to Puerto Rico. So maybe we won't get to talk next week, but we'll have fun when we'll talk about it when you get back. I can't wait. I'll be retweeting your stuff and looking forward to reading it. So Bill Sparrows, senior betting analyst at bookies.com. Thank you once again for all your great insights, not just gambling, but everything else, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So.
Yeah, those Fenway roof gardens are freaking 10. I mean, I saw that. I was like, God damn, I love this team.
Well, I look forward to some of your pictures. Anyway, all the best. Safe travels to Puerto Rico. We'll talk soon. Thanks. All right. Thank you. Angel, I'm going to take a quick break here before Mia comes on. But I'll be back. If she pops on, we'll end the break early. But we're back. Mia O'Brien, ESPN Radio, coming up next here on the Pete Sheppard Show on the Coastal Sports Digital Network.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Hey everybody, it's Pete Sheppard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of Ace Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists. At ATA, they're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com. Or you can email them, sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I gotta tell you, I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too, but I'm glad we are.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and life experiences come together through conversation, and it feels good.
Wow, your story is so...
Interesting?
Yeah.
When people actually sit down, talk, and listen to one another, they can break down boundaries and connect as human beings. At lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep, you can listen to amazing, life-changing conversations and find simple tools to start a conversation of your own.
I know one thing. This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together by having the courage to start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
People do some pretty cool things in their 40s and 50s. Why should saving for retirement be any different? I mean, they go back to college, learn new instruments,
Don't spaz out because your team lost. Let Pete do it for you. Now, back to the Pete Sheppard Show.
Notre Dame went on the road, had a strong win at Stanford, but Alabama went on the road in a rivalry game. Looked really good, especially in the first half, getting up 17-0, ran the ball well. Auburn came back at them. They had a great gutsy call on 4th and 2 late in the third quarter to get a touchdown, and then got the turnover late in that game. And I think that was enough to change the minds of a couple of committee members to push Alabama up ahead of Notre Dame in this week's rankings.
Okay, 2 things. 1, get me my toothpicks and sriracha so I can kill myself and make myself go blind. And everybody on that committee should be drug tested at least several times. Anyway, welcome back to the Pete Sheppard Show here on the Coastal Sports Digital Network. Once again, pleased to be joined by one of my favorite people in the world to talk to, Mia O'Brien from ESPN Radio. Sriracha, toothpicks. I can't stand it, Mia. I cannot absolutely stand it. I don't get it. It's been 3 years of this nonsense. Every year it gets worse and worse and worse. The torrential flood of your logic, as my good friend Mr. Spock used to say on Star Trek, is just overwhelming. The hypocrisy, how some rules or some of these, the conditions which they claim, the criteria which they claim to cherish, applies to certain teams in one regard, and in another regard, it's just disregarded. Why shouldn't I stick toothpicks in my eyes and put sriracha all over my body the next half hour? Talk me
Well,
out.
I was going to say if the FCC would allow for me to read Bruce Feldman's tweet, I would, because I think that kind of hit the nail on the head. If one of the most plugged-in insiders is dropping a couple F-bombs about just how erratic and inconsistent this committee is, then I think that kind of says it all. So that's kind of where we're at. It's not just you; it's everybody.
No, I understand that. I just don't understand when he said. What I don't understand is a couple things. And for me, I got to sit here and defend Notre Dame, which is ridiculous for me to have to defend Notre Dame. I don't know how Alabama, I forgot, the gutsy call that they had against a bad Auburn team. They don't have the same parameters as far as sexy wins, while other teams have to run up scores, like my Hurricanes, unfortunately, Vanderbilt and others, have to try to run up the score to impress the committee, even though they say it doesn't count. Apparently, it doesn't matter with Alabama. They can just win however they want. The other thing that they don't even address, and I was surprised Reese Davis didn't bring this up last night either, how the hell does Oklahoma stay where they are?
Because they beat Alabama and because the committee values Alabama. That's why.
Well, I understand that, but I don't know how they should have lost that game to LSU.
Yep.
It's the last second. I mean, I don't understand. And
Well, we can't go off all eye tests. We learned that the hard way with the BCS and with the 4-team playoff. They don't want to do the eye test, but they don't want to do head-to-head. But they don't want to do potential conference championships because then chaos will reign supreme thanks to the ACC. So, yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but I just saw a headline from On3 that now Diego Pavia is pleading for President Trump to sign an executive order to make it a 16-team playoff. I'm not in favor of it being a participation trophy either, but that's kind of where we're trending towards. But at the same time, I would like to see Pavia and the Doors. I think they would have a better shot at some of these big dogs than, say, what Oklahoma, outside of what Oklahoma's defense has been able to put on the field the last month and a half.
Well, again, here's what the politicians. Again, you saw Senator Rubio in Florida, and with Governor DeSantis, and I don't want to hear from politicians in any way, shape, or form. I mean, we get enough. They get enough to worry about. Everybody does. Look, 16 teams always made sense to me. Every other, it's done in the FCS. They have 24 now, I think, right? I forget, but
yeah, they have 24 because it's a full bracket. Yes,
16 is fine. Cap it at 16. And there's always going to be bitching and moaning no matter what. We saw it in the NCAA for years, and I was old enough to remember when it was 32 or even less than that, and then to 64, 68. You're always going to get the 69th team. I get all that. I don't mind the little guy. I don't understand why nobody goes after these guys more about what they say about Alabama or Notre Dame as opposed to what they say about Miami, Oklahoma, BYU. The whole thing, and the fact that the NCAA and Charlie Baker, everything is not in sync. This whole timeline stuff that's a whole other issue. It's just, it's a freaking mess. But there is a chance that Miami and Notre Dame might not be in this thing. I can't believe it.
No, I mean, honestly, and I obviously would love to see your Canes and would love to see, some of the other quote unquote blue bloods of the sport in the field, but I'm at a point where, number one, I'm rooting for Duke because I want chaos and because I want James Madison, which is Kevin's mom's alma mater, and I love the Dukies. I'd love to see two group of 5 schools in the field just because as much as Josh Pate's out here touting, well, look at what the betting lines are going to be. I don't care. Like, that's the same program that produced Kurt Signetti. Allegedly, Bob Chesney's good enough for UCLA, so he probably should be good enough to compete with the Power Fours of the world, even if the roster, quote unquote, isn't. But half those same cats were playing for Signetti and looked pretty darn good. So file that one away. And then, unfortunately, I am rooting for BYU, because Coach Sataki joined us on game night on ESPN Radio last week, so friend of the program. And also he turned Penn State down and has now turned State College into chaos. And also shout out to the crumble cookie guy. So I find myself rooting for BYU, and also because I have a 6 degrees of separation to Bear and the family out there because his brother was training here in Jacksonville, and so got to know his sister-in-law. So, yeah. So, unfortunately, I'm rooting for BYU just because I think that then that creates the least amount of drama outside of the Alabama of it all, which unfortunately with this committee, I don't think we're ever going to be able to eliminate that.
Well, it certainly seems that it doesn't matter what, barring, I guess, if they lose by 50 to Georgia, it doesn't matter what Alabama does. They're going to get in.
Which they shouldn't, because my thing is, like, if you're going to hold the Florida loss against Texas, how are you not holding the Florida State loss at the feet of Alabama? Like, it makes zero sense to me.
I mean, there's so many of those scenarios, Mia, that they just don't. They only apply, or he's too chicken bleep to talk about it. I mean, or the committee. And the fact when Reese brought up, this is the most disturbing thing. The fact of the matter is the question at the end where Reese brought up about, do you have a scenario in place if BYU wins or BYU loses?
He said no.
He goes, no. You're telling me that that's the first time the whole committee is going to be together is on probably Friday night for the 2 conference champs, but Saturday? What are we doing? What are we doing? I mean,
They
that is
tried to be
ridiculous.
transparent too. I mean, like they got Heather Dinich in the room. Like they
Yep.
bring a rotating reporter every week, seemingly. Like, I mean, they're trying, and like even the reporters who are in there are like, yeah, it's different week to week, different year to year, and that's just the nature of it.
All right, we could do that all day. We'll get to the Jaguars in a second, but I do want to ask you about the craziness. I know you work Thanksgiving weekend and everything, which normally, besides the NFL games, obviously, it can be a little. You must have been going crazy with all these college football in the SEC, the five coaching changes, just the Lane Kiffin drama alone. Then you add on with everything else. Before we get into that and how your weekend went, and hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. Why was Alex Golesh not pursued heavier by the Florida Gators? Or if he was, and I don't know about it, maybe, first it was Arkansas, then it predicted by me last month. I said he was going to go to Auburn, kind of half tongue in cheek. He ended up there. And I'm wondering, had the Florida Gators pursued him, which I don't understand what their infatuation is with the Louisiana coaches. Here's a coach, Alex Golesh, who's recruited in the state, turned a 1-11 team into a nationally ranked team, everything else. And the Gators don't go after him. They go after Summerall. I don't understand it. I don't know how much they pursued him. I don't know if Golesh didn't want to go there or whatever. What have you heard, just in that situation alone, have you heard anything up there about why Alex Golesh was not pursued or why
Yeah, I think if John Summerall had turned down the job, I think Alex Golesh is the next coach of Florida. I think it was the two of them neck and neck. The biggest sticking point that I can tell you, and obviously this matches with what John Talty of CBS Sports has also reported, was that Scott Strickland was adamant about having the NFL model akin to what we're seeing at Oklahoma with Jim Nagy. He was adamant to get some sort of NFL influence in the building, whether that was the head coach himself having had former NFL experience or the general manager. And to have those two silos where the GM does not report to the head coach, he reports to the athletic director, and they operate in symbiosis, but at the same time they're in separate silos. And that's where Lane Kiffin had reservations, as John reported, because he wanted to bring his own guy. He felt like Ole Miss is doing a fine and dandy job with a GM who reports to him. And there were brief moments I heard last week where John Summerall potentially had questions. However, the Florida situation was still better than Auburn, where they basically told him, like, you are not going to have any control because we control the situation. And that was a little scary for him. And so when he looked at Florida, I think number one, like, let's be real. I think the other thing that's really come out of this is that Scott Strickland is he's a very nice man, which I would have told you last week. And I'm still telling you that. And that's also his biggest Achilles heel right now, is that he is such a nice man that he cannot go toe to toe with someone like Lane Kiffin when Lane says, I don't want that. And Scott goes, okay, all right, fine. And so that's where I think, ultimately once Summerall was like, yeah, I'll play ball with Dave. And obviously, I go way back with Dave. And so I'm never going to say a bad thing about Dave. And that's even after his final, 1-win season here in Jacksonville. But at the same time, like, I think that it just matched with Summerall. And by the way, like, there are so many other blue blood SEC programs that are crying about how Florida got the number one coach in the pool. And I've heard people who also said they think Golesh might actually be the best coach. I think in terms of pure coach, I think they're 1-2 in this pool. Time will tell if that's actually the case. But in terms of like leader of men, understanding both sides of the football, being an elite recruiter, I think that they're both in that same pot. I just think that Florida went with Summerall because he is a SEC Southeastern guy. But make no mistake about it. I mean, and I've got ties and I've got people that are on the staff at USF that are following Golesh to Auburn, or at least hope to.
Yeah.
And like, they thought there was a time where they were going to go to Florida too. They also thought they were going to Arkansas last week. So there was so much in flux. And then you also throw the whole Silverfield thing in. Like, he's a Jacksonville guy. Like, I've talked to him once or twice. Like, so it was a very weird, to your point, like, it was a very weird Sunday because the Jaguars were playing what we all assume would be a gimme putt. And thankfully it was up in Nashville. And I was coming off of, 5 broadcasts in 6 days or whatever it was on the basketball front, plus 3 ESPN broadcasts. So like, there was a lot going going on, but it was hilarious. Just like sitting on the couch Sunday morning and being like, there's one, there's two, there's three. So yeah, so it's interesting. But to your point, Florida, I would say if John Summerall had not accepted the job, which there was a brief moment on Saturday where there was a thought because he had not signed the deal yet. Golish was a name that was thrown out to me, and I was like, okay, so we're back to square one where we were week 2 of the or the college football season, excuse me, when he beat the Gators in the Swamp. So cool.
And meanwhile, Mike Norvell is staying. Well, that's the last we spoke.
Hey, listen, I have not listened to it yet. I need to listen to Spurrier with Dooley, because like Spurrier got done that presser and just decided to just do the Spurrier thing and go on every podcast and just throw shade at Florida State, throw shade at Alabama, and like I have been meaning to listen to it. So thank you for inadvertently reminding me I need to listen to it this week.
Well, does it surprise you that they kept them? We talked earlier last month at some point about money, and I remember you saying, well, if they do it, they do have a plan, a financial plan where they can pay him in increments. It doesn't necessarily have to be here's whatever, how many tens of millions of dollars he would be owed, but they thought better of it, or for whatever reason. He's not going anywhere, at least for now.
Norvell? No, Norvell's not going anywhere. No. Yeah. No, Norvell, if anything, I heard like they're going to try to go hire an NFL GM. And I've heard some names that are on the short list. But yeah, they're going to go try to hire an NFL GM of their own. Kind of like last year, it was like, okay, we're going to go get new coordinators. Well, evidently, the athletic director and the chancellor, or the president, excuse me, are out here loving on Gus Malzahn and his top 10 offense. By the way, Gus Malzahn, if he was fired, would also do a large chunk of change himself. And so therefore, yeah, I don't think Gus or Norvell's going anywhere. Defense coordinator, I can't speak on that front, but I think that just like last go round, it was, well, now we're going to change the coordinators. This go round, it's, well, now we're going to get an NFL GM in there, which by the way, I mean, for what it's worth to bring it to basketball, North Carolina looked pretty good last night. And I was stunned when Hubert Davis was extended with this Band-Aid fix of, well, now he has a general manager who doesn't report to him. So maybe that'll work for Norvell too. But Hubert's a little bit more likable, with all due respect to Mike.
Back to the Gators real quick. Former Jaguars GM Dave Caldwell, I think you just touched on this a second ago, but just, I mean, he's executive with the Eagles, and he's going to Florida to be the GM there. How big is that going to be with him and Summerall together? I mean, you know him pretty well, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. This is something that was floated a year ago, almost came to fruition, but again, without throwing Billy Napier under the bus, I will just go back to again this idea of separate silos. And it's not just Dave. There's a lot of NFL GMs who have flirted with this idea of going to college, because ultimately, unlike head coaching positions, Pete, in the National Football League, you only get one bite of the apple as a general manager 9 times out of 10, unless you're Trent Baalke, in which you have 9 lives. And so shade at Trent Baalke, number one. But here's the thing is like, that's why there's a longer leash in the NFL. Because like that's why Joe Shane hasn't been fired, I don't think, because you're only going to get one crack at this. And so that's where I think that, not that Dave has written off the idea of going back to staying in the NFL, because he loves working for Howie. He loved working for Howie in the past tense as well. And I think that there was a thought of like, oh, eventually, but this is something that's been talked about for a while now. And Billy Napier did not want to, again, Scott Strickland's a nice guy. Billy Napier, Scott Strickland, both just nice boys. Yep. And he told him, nah, Scott, I don't want somebody who's going to operate over there. I want him to report to me. And I also know some people who helped with that search process. And yeah, again, I think that Scott Strickland just went along with whatever Billy Napier said. And to his credit, part of why I don't want to say said no to Lane Kiffin, but had reservations about Lane Kiffin, was Lane wasn't in line with what Florida and Scott Strickland wanted to do. And you can laugh at them all you want about Dave being like who they had earmarked, but he's lived in the area now since 2012, late 2012, early 2013. He knows the landscape. He just worked for Howie for 5 years. One of the most noted Gator alums in the National Football League. And Dave, to his credit, and he said this on Monday, like he truly has learned now being, first of all, like I think this is any leadership role. Talk to any head coach. They are better prepared to be a head coach the second time than they were the first time because they've had the experience. And so the same thing goes for a general manager, but also then when you learn from Howie, and so therefore you have the exposure now to Polian and that crew that he had coming up and Thomas Dimitrov, then his own experience here in Jacksonville with everything that went on in the 3 evolutions of his time here between Gus and then Doug Marrone, Tom Coughlin, and then the no Tom Coughlin situation, and then what he saw from Howie. So no, I think Dave is equipped for it. I think that it's good. It is. Look at what Oklahoma is doing. I know we bashed Oklahoma earlier, but like I have a lot of respect for Jim Nagy, who was not an NFL GM. He was a scout, but he was not a general manager. And look what they've been able to do and what they've been able to compile between their scouting staff, that they basically took the entire Senior Bowl staff and brought them in. And I don't think Dave's going to go to the Eagles and take everybody and bring them in necessarily. But again, I think that structure is working right now. And I think you're going to see it more and more across the league. But yeah, Dave is, this was not a out of left field hire. And this is something that both sides have thought a lot about. So.
Have you heard? You're close to the in the conference, but now for USF. Actually, just want to touch one last thing on Lane Kiffin, because Feinbaum was right the other day. It might have been yesterday. I can't remember. All these days are blending. All these coaches, but the most disingenuous thing Lane Kiffin said, and I'm still surprised that Governor Landry, who's running the university, it seems, who did not want to pay Brian Kelly because he said he didn't want to pay these exorbitant amount of monies, and then
but he'll pay Lane.
But he'll pay Lane. But that was the one thing I think we talked about this, about Lane going there, because he would not have total autonomy, because Governor Landry was going to be the head honcho that he was going to have to answer to. But I guess, and by all different, every account, everybody had the same sort of deal on the table: $100 million, including $25 million for expenses, meaning no money and whatever you needed to. So it does surprise me a little bit, knowing that Governor Landry is the head honcho in charge of this whole thing. It certainly seems that way.
Yeah, but
for him to say, though, that the agent did not tell him how much money he was making and all he cared about was money for the play, it was very disingenuous. It was just an absolute flat out lie.
He's Lane. He's still Lane. He hasn't changed. It's that simple. And that's okay, because I think he's being his authentic self. And even if the authentic self has evolved slightly, and now includes Bible verses, like that this is who he is, and he's not going to change.
Well, you know my feeling. First of all, the Lord is never in the losing locker room, ever. Only in the winning locker room in any sport. You never hear about the Lord when the team loses, or when those kids at Ole Miss get screwed over. And the kids are always laughed at. It happens all the time. Real quick before the Jaguars, with the great Mia O'Brien from ESPN Radio. So the next coach at USF, first I heard Jerry Mack at Kennesaw State. Is John Gruden anywhere?
I heard the name thrown out. No, I heard it thrown out. I did hear John Gruden thrown out. I think it, again, I don't know. I'm not as familiar with that hiring situation as I am with what went down at Florida. But I will say that akin to Florida, where you had like one big Tampa bull booster who basically said if John Gruden didn't get a phone call, he was not going to give money. And Florida was like, you're a mid-tier donor. Like, we can survive without your money. I'm assuming it's similar, although a little different, given that it's a group of 5 school and he lives in Tampa and the school is located in Tampa. But I think it's akin to that, where you've got a couple friends of the program who are friends with Gruden, and they're like, hey, we got to make a phone call, at least to see if there would be interest there. But yeah, Jerry Mack was here for 1 year as the running backs coach here in Jacksonville. Guys seem to like him. I know he also was reported to potentially be in the running for the Memphis job as well. Has done great work with Kennesaw State, a program that didn't exist in its current iteration 3-4 years ago. So yeah, I mean, I'd sign off on Jerry. I've seen a couple other names floated, but again, not as familiar with how that process is going, outside of I have immense respect for Higgins and how the athletic department, number one, has handled Golish's departure, and number two, just how they're building that through recognizing that athletics are a financial entity, and they're trying to run it as a business. And the fact that he's called the CEO, like, I think that's the way that it should be approached. So shout out to USF for that.
All right, let's talk about the Jaguars here and Trevor Lawrence. Let's start with him. We always start with a quarterback, and this certainly has been something seemed different about it, in a good way. In a good way, something is happening, I think, with the Jaguars here, and whether it's Coach Cohen, the system, the scheme, whatever it is, I'm seeing. It seems like a rejuvenated Trevor Lawrence, and obviously, the Jaguars have won 4 in a row, and then first place in the division. Playing an Indy team, and if not mistaken, they dominate Indianapolis, don't they? Especially in Jacksonville. This is some ridiculous record.
10 straight.
10 straight, yeah. And the Colts are reeling a little bit, no question about it. But I'm very impressed what I've seen the last month with Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I think that a lot of it is the system finally, him trusting the system and him trusting his training and him not thinking. I know a lot has been made about him wearing the play sheet on his arm, and I think that that goes along with this notion of just stop thinking, because I don't think he's dumb. I think Trevor is a very high IQ football player, and I also think he's really intelligent. He got a marketing degree from Clemson in less than 3 years, so, like, he's not stupid. I think that a lot of it, though, is there's the part of him that's probably got things that he learned from Doug in one side of his brain and things he learned from Dabo and now things he's hearing from Liam. And how do you sort through all that? Because he is just 26 years old. And so I think that you're seeing all of that come together. Obviously, the addition of Jacoby Myers, which coincided with Brenton Strange's return from the injured reserve list, has completely opened up the middle of the field once more, especially given that you saw throughout the early stretches of the season, Brian Thomas Jr., De'Ami Brown, perhaps not as comfortable with some of those in-breaking routes. Parker Washington, I do not have an update since I know everyone wants it. I don't have an update. We'll talk to Liam in an hour, so maybe I'll have an update for you then, but I can't guarantee I will then either. But Parker Washington seemingly was the only wide receiver outside of Tim Patrick, who's the fourth or fifth receiver, depending on the day, who was willing to go over the middle of the field. You bring in Jacoby Myers, and just the awareness of recognizing time and space, recognizing soft spots in the zone. It's so funny because, like, everyone wants to talk about, okay, so you had the first, you throw Urban's year out the window. You got the first 8 weeks of Doug and Trevor where they were feeling each other out. Then you had that 18-month stretch between the end of 22 and the first half of 23 where Trevor looked like a top 10, top 15 quarterback. And then everything fell apart because of the injuries. And then all of 24 you can throw in the can as well. Now, what's funny is what no one talks about is that third stretch, that second half of 23 and all of 24, that coincided with injuries to Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram, which, wait for it, all but took away the middle of the field. And so I think that because you finally have, once again, two pass catchers who are more than willing to create opportunities for you. And if you throw Parker Washington and you've got three, and that also allows for that vertical field stretcher in Brian Thomas Jr. out on the perimeter to therefore have more opportunities, or you'll do what the Titans did and you'll double team him, which leaves Jacoby Myers streaking wide open in the middle of the field. I think that you're seeing not a similar offensive scheme per se to 2022, but you're seeing similar opportunities for Trevor Lawrence, nice layups, quote unquote, that do match the footwork, their time to the scheme and his progressions. And you're seeing that because you have receivers that are circle pegs and circle holes, square pegs and square holes, just like you saw in the second half of 22.
Absolutely. Well, Mia, what else is going on? So you're going to be at the Jaguar. Are you working this Saturday or Sunday? Are you going to Jaguars?
So it'll be Jags are home on Sunday, and so they will host the Colts. That will be, yes, the Jaguars have won 10 straight, including the victory in London. That was technically a home game. I think that was in 2015 or 2016. But the last time that the Jaguars lost to Indianapolis at home was Blake Bortles' debut when he came on at halftime in mop-up duty back in 2014. So it's a nice little streak going there. We'll see what happens. Vegas has the Colts as a 1.5-point favorite, despite no Sauce Gardner, despite no DeForest Buckner, and despite Daniel Jones having one leg. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I've got that on Sunday. A little bit of an easier broadcasting week this week, just because finals around the corner at UNF, and then also because I also work at the university, we've got a lot going down. So events yesterday, tomorrow. So I'll be at the stadium today. Club 904 podcast tomorrow, but taping that this afternoon with my friend Angela Morian up of Wish TV from Indy. Locked on Jaguars squad show tonight at 6:00 with Marcus Ogden, brother of Jonathan Ogden, and then T-Wig. And then we'll have post-game Action News Jacks Sunday, Club 904. I think that's it. And then no basketball games next week because of the finals schedule. And then we'll pick up again once the December break hits.
Kids still take tests? That still goes on?
Apparently they have a lot of projects and presentations, as I'm finding as now a full-time instructor. There's a lot of, hey, I have to present or I have to do a peer review. I'm discovering.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Thank you so much, Mia O'Brien from ESPN Radio. She's all over the place. I try to tweet as much stuff for you as I can. Always a pleasure, and maybe we can talk next week, and maybe we'll see how this whole thing is sorted out. But I'm kind of with you. I'm rooting for chaos this week in the college football championship games, and It's already chaos. I'm rooting for more chaos.
We didn't even talk about the Crumble guy that much, but shout out to Crumble Cookie. Thank you for keeping Sataki where he belongs in the great state of Utah.
Absolutely. Although I'll be rooting for Texas Tech for my own selfish purposes, for Miami reasons. But I hear you. It's great. And who will be the next head coach of Penn State? We'll find out next week, maybe. All right, Mia, thank you so much. All the best.
Later, guys.
There she goes. Mia O'Brien, just like that, from ESPN Radio. Unbelievable. Angel, I'm wiped.
Yeah, well, a lot of discussion here this morning, Bill. Bill always has something unique and interesting on. That's the funnier part about him. But he, good stuff from him. Obviously, great stuff always from Mia. It's just absolutely freaking bananas. But Bill just he makes me laugh. Like that's the one person I look forward to every single week because you never know. It's either a Duncan outfit, it's a sombrero. Like there's always something with Bill.
Yeah, it's great.
Morning, Joey B.
Hey, Joey B. Good morning. Yeah, thanks. A Crumble Cookie piece about to jump even higher. Absolutely. All right, Angel. What else is coming up today on the network on this Hump Day Wednesday?
Today be Wednesday. What do we have on Wednesday? Oh, the We the Thunder podcast will be on later on this evening. That should be about 8:00. Sometimes guys move it till 9 p.m. So you guys will be able to see that tonight. That is Wednesday, and that's about it. And then I got some other stuff to work on, and also trying to get together with our server to figure out they're hot on the issue with Odyssey and stuff. And so my day never ends.
All right, that's going to do it. Thanks to Mia O'Brien from ESPN Radio. Thanks to Bill Sparrow, senior betting analyst from bookies.com. Thanks to all of you guys for listening. Angel Martinez, you're the best. I'll give you a guest list tomorrow. Trevor Harris will be one of them, I think at 8:05, and then the rest I will let you know later this afternoon. Have a great and safe rest of your Hump Day Wednesday, everybody. I'm Pete, back tomorrow on the Coastal Sports Digital Network at 7 a.m. See ya! People need to justify the lifestyle.